Everything is not going as it should. The heroine wanted to start a new life, but it is not clear why everything turned out different. The boy clings to the body, asking the maiden not to divorce his older brother. His name is Caleb Indigentia. The young villain from the novel does not let the beauty go. He plaintively asks if the lady really does not want to live with him. Elia tries to assure that she wants to stay, but her contract with Cedric Kettisel Indigentia will soon expire. The man asks his younger brother to unhook from the dress and not create problems for his wife. The blonde believes that, without the help of the girl, the Duke would become a fool. He would cut off his finger so as not to get it dirty in the mud. The baby would be scared without a friend. So, once again, the request is made to stay. Khalib's elder brother is known to be the strongest in this world. He single-handedly defeated more than 100 soldiers. The monster under the bed that is feared is a great evil that will become a part of man. Indigentia will be the evil wizard who rules the world. The brunette calls the boy again. He puts Aaliyah in a difficult position, forcing her to think about what to do next. Patience runs out, and a drop of anger is heard in her voice. The virgin begins to think about how to calm her husband so that a storm does not start. Khalib is taken by force, removed from his girlfriend's body, and nothing can be changed anyway, even if you want to. Not intending to make peace, the young man pulls his hand out, shouting that his brother is a fool. The man should not have given up on Elia, and certainly should not have let her go just like that. In fact, he didn't want to do that. The girl stands in the middle, asking the guys to calm down. She doesn't understand why the altercation started before her eyes. It's not clear how it all happened. One day, the lady opened her eyes and found herself in an unfamiliar body. There was a completely different reflection in the mirror. Very soon, the realization about rebirth came. The person was not familiar with the body into which he had. The main information was found in the diary. This world turned out to be a novel. The girl's name is Aaliyah, and her age is 23 years old. Nothing more could be found out. It's impossible to remember anything. Most likely the virgin is in an extra mode which the author conveniently forgot about. An impenetrable forest is visible outside the window. The weather seems excellent, so the decision is immediately made to go for a walk. What kind of world this is and what kind of character I had to become is unknown, but this is not sad. The most important thing is that everything turned out more than well. Rebirth is like an opportunity. The girl won't have to worry about the original story like other characters. Elia opens an area where there is no one yet. The bunny she wanted to pet ran away almost immediately. The forest is wonderful because there are animals all around. Another wolf is visible in the distance, but he is chasing a child who is trying to escape. The woman rushes forward. She orders the baby to run to her, assuring that everything will be fine if he does so. The boy is hiding behind the main character. It is not known whether he will be able to do what is necessary, but there is no time left. The child needs to be protected. First of all, perhaps everything will work out, because in the world of the novel, anything should happen. The wolf seems to have slowed down, and then the girl raises her leg, she hits the attacker with all her strength, and he flies off somewhere to the side. I can't believe that everything worked, and that the body is so strong now there is no threat, so you can calm down. The boy must have been very scared. The blonde rejoices at how lucky he is and thanks him for saving him. The woman knows very well that there can be no similarities, but this man resembles an acquaintance named Yun. It's not clear how this is possible because the guy is right in front of her. The young man asks who he is, saying that he has a completely different name. The hero is the Prince of Indigentia, and his name is Khalib. The realization quickly overtakes the beauty, who freezes like a statue. The pieces of the puzzle began to come together in my head. This child is the villain in the novel, and this is the story about him. The girl's only relative was Yun. He suffered from a rare disease and had to always be in the hospital. Despite his age, the brother bravely endured the treatment as a member of the national taekwondo team. The sister promised to win a gold medal. The boy said that he would wait impatiently. Time passed quickly while the lady was preparing for the Olympics, and the day came when she managed to get a medal. For Yun's sake, his little sister did what she had to do, and now she is going to return victorious. Now there was no need to worry about money, and they could transfer to a better hospital. They should have lived happily ever after. But it seems something went wrong. The boy asked the doctors not to tell the girl anything until the competition was over. After his death, she ignored all the journalists who came. The brunette became addicted to the internet. She really wanted to escape from reality, and one day she managed to see an advertisement. In the novel, This Time I Won't Put You to Bed, the girl couldn't look at the cover. Among the characters, there was a villain who resembled a brother. This is how the girl fell in love with the novel, thus drowning out the pain that was accumulating inside. In front of Aaliyah is the same hero. It seems the lady saved him because she thought he was Yun. He asks for forgiveness if she is disappointed. The blonde promises that he will definitely repay since the girl is his savior. Everything will be fine in any case. If not for the wound that the boy received, he could have dealt with the wolf using magic. Unfortunately, this did not happen. There was blood on his hand. The hero believes that this does not matter, but in fact, he needs to take care of his health. There were some other red marks on the palm. It seems that these are scars from an old injury that has nothing to do with it. It will not be possible to treat the wound, so you need to go to the house the woman offers to go to where she lives. Rising from the ground, the girl points her finger forward in the direction where they need to go. Caleb's even leg is damaged. Looks like the kid twisted his ankle while running away. If he's in pain, you just need to tell him and not try to act fearless. The boy is acting strangely, making it seem as if Aaliyah is scolding him when in fact it is just anxiety. This has already happened. The heroine begins to gradually remember the content of the novel, and everything becomes more logical. Caleb is the legitimate son, but for some reason the nobles did not like the boy and always demanded too much from him. I would like to know why the young man is hated so much. The original story didn't say why things happen. Because of the standards that people in high society set, it was extremely difficult for the prince. He is still just a child. Yoon once said that there was no point in worrying, and therefore the sister did not even worry, thereby making a mistake. The heroine kneels down, exposing her back. The blonde injured his leg, so in order not to be injured further, they will carry him. The hero assures that he only has a minor injury that will not change anything. His brother's words that he is fine do not leave his consciousness. The problem is that the beauty continues to see Yoon in this boy. The woman knows that he is normal, but still wants to do something important. Sitting on a lady's back is not a bad thing if there is a need for it. The girl is very strong, so nothing will happen. Caleb is completely different. If he could use magic and heal his hand, everything would be completely different. In the house, the lady seats the prince at the table. She hands him cocoa, because this is the only thing left in her house. Accepting the mug, the boy thanks for the concern. There is no point in saying anything because this is only a small thing that can be done. You can look at a child not only with tenderness, but also with horror. In the future, he will plunge the whole world into the abyss of fear. The girl doesn't understand why she got involved with indigencia. He is a villain, and Elia was just reborn in an extra state. The hero will have to be returned after recovery. Rumbling is heard. The young man had to say that he was hungry and had to be honest at least once. The prince has been walking through the forest since the morning, and it's already 5 in the evening. The baby hasn't eaten all day, so Elia is going to cook something. The hero never eats dinner. If he gains weight, he will look bad at the event. The etiquette teacher told him not to have dinner. I can't believe that the teacher said to go on a diet. The boy should grow with the help of food, but now it's clear why he seemed so light when he was carried on his back. Turning around, the girl asks to wait a little. The one who said not to eat was the one who will get what he deserves. The girl will send her new friend back, but first he will eat a huge amount of delicious food that will be prepared. Everything turned out to be not as rosy as I wanted. There was nothing left except potatoes, so the lady did everything she could. The blonde is surprised at how so many dishes can be prepared in a short period of time. It seems that the maiden didn't even use magic. The woman is used to this since she lives alone. She offers to try, realizing that the guy still doesn't know what to do. The hero takes the spoon and then carefully bites off a piece. It's hard to believe that he could have been starved. The pepper taste was a little strong, but overall everything was fine. The food must have been edible. Holding out potato pancakes, the beauty says that they are eaten when it rains. The taste is truly amazing. The young man will definitely think about this food when it rains outside. The girl asks not to eat too quickly so as not to choke. If necessary, she can always cook a little more. The beauty said that she would soon send the child back, but for now she needs to look for other products in the morning. The young man opens his eyes and begins to get nervous because he overslept. The realization that he is in Aaliyah's house does not come immediately. The body is well rested, so we can assume that this is the most important thing. It's amazing how things turned out. After one incident, the young man did not have a restful sleep. Moments flashed through his head that he would like to forget. The door opens, and Elia appears on the threshold. She smiles, asking how her new acquaintance slept. The young man could not be woken up. So the girl left alone. She went to the market to buy groceries so there would be stew with meat for dinner. The woman seems like a simpleton, but she is still dazzling. Her actions mean a lot, and she repelled the wolf and even healed her wounds. Cooking takes time. The hero would like to know more about Aaliyah, but he himself did not tell anything. Starting tomorrow, the man asks to wake him up. If he doesn't get up, it's time to change the topic, which has nothing to do with the conversation. You can't get up too late, and especially for a prince who is constantly busy, nothing is impossible. Nothing will happen if the child sleeps longer. Correcting his friend Khalib reminds her that he is the heir to the dukedom. It is necessary to agree, but until the prince returns to the duchy, he is just a baby who can rest. If the hero wants to sleep, he can sleep. And if he wants to eat, then he can eat. Everything will be fine if you don't follow. Aaliyah is strong, can kill a wolf with one hit, and can heal and also cook well. She's really good. Turning away, the beauty proposes to sit down at the table so that they can finally eat the food, spreading a pleasant aroma. In my head, I hear the words of the etiquette teacher, who always said that the boy should behave like an adult since the gentleman has grown up. Of course, the blonde understands that he shouldn't do as Aaliyah says, but he can't help himself. The young man is happy from the words his new girlfriend says. He is not used to feeling so comfortable. The cocoa has run out, so the girl apologizes. Chamomile as tea is also suitable, especially with delicious food. The hero is not silent, sharply saying that the girl is amazing. It seems that she acquired such qualities because of a child named Yun. The prince wants to know more about who he will spend time with and wants to tell about himself. They should be on an equal footing. The girl doesn't know how to react to Caleb's desire to get closer because it is not clear what to do, but you need to try your best not to cross the line. Smiling, Aaliyah invites the boy to start and tell him more about himself. The baby's eyes are so cute that it is literally impossible to refuse him. Everything will be fine because the lady will just listen to the story and will not interfere any. The young man says that in fact he has an older brother. The virgin will not be able to change the fate of her friend. Cedric was mentioned often in the novel, so it is almost impossible to forget his name. The man was adopted when he was 10 years old. At 13, the boy perfectly mastered the magic of gravity. Then the weather magic that had disappeared 120 years ago was revived. He even broke the emperor's scepter. The young man was considered the strongest person, but no more information was revealed. Caleb respects Cedric. Last year, Kettisel was cursed saying these words. The blonde sadly lowers his eyes to the floor. They say that only a spellcaster can lift the curse, but he has not yet been found since the person has disappeared. Due to the fairy's curse, Caleb fell into the abyss of darkness. In the original story, the main characters are Daphne, the daughter of the Marinist family, and Renoa, the prince of the Ypresent Empire. One day, a fairy appeared in front of Renoa and tried to cast a curse so that the baby would fall asleep forever. At that moment, his friend appeared, and to help reflected the magic with the help of a shield of strength. From that moment on, the couple gradually fell in love with each other because their connection was so strong. When the girl got into the novel, all the actions had already happened, and fortunately she missed them and did not get caught. The curse can be lifted if you go to the Temple of Knowledge, as if you are given the only chance for a normal life. The temple contains the knowledge of the world, as well as the material magic of Maishalat, the water magic of Marinist, and the gravitational magic of Indigenia. If the lady remembers correctly, only family members' future heads, or those who have sworn allegiance to the family, can enter the place. The fastest way to get into the temple is the Archduke, but his brother refuses to inherit the title and tries to transfer it to Caleb. The young man says that there is no need to worry, but the boy is afraid that he will not be able to lift the curse. Until the hero becomes an Archduke, he must limit himself in everything because he has many shortcomings. Aaliyah listens but cannot tell that before the boy achieves his goal, his brother's condition will worsen. The hero will go to the temple where he will read all the books he can find. But not only will he not find information on how to correct the mistake, but he will not find information about the fairy. One day, Indigentia hears that the fairy has been captured by the imperial family. He will immediately go to the cave. Unfortunately, the person who is able to lift the curse will already be dead. Time cannot be turned back. Caleb will watch and understand that the emperor has a conspiracy. He will begin to hate all members of the emperor's family for the sake of his brother and the destruction of his enemies. He will become interested in black magic and make a deal with the devil himself. No matter how much the beauty wants to do something, she is not sure that she will achieve anything even if she starts. It will not be possible to save the guy and make sure the future is changed, so we can only watch sadly. This child is not Yoon, but that doesn't mean anything because as long as Khalib is in this house, everything is different. The woman gets up from her seat, only to hug the boy tightly. He will succeed, and he will be able to save his brother. If the lady can do something, she will help. Everything should be fine. A week has passed since the young man moved into the hut, and his attitude has changed greatly. Now the future Duke is unrecognizable because he constantly smiles, enjoying the life that he has. The prince learned to openly express his feelings and not rely on the fact that someone would be ashamed of him. The boy brought a hare. He met this little one while he was walking in the forest, and so he decided to show it to his friend. The girl quickly realizes that she has already seen the baby because this is the same animal that ran away on the first day. The beauty wanted to touch the hare, but he ran away very quickly. The only strange thing is that this was the second time. Most likely the animal got scared when it saw Elia, so as not to upset the Duke, the friend offers to go back and cook something. The couple gets ready to go back, and before that, the guy asks to hold his friend's hand, to which she happily agrees. Caleb's wounds are almost healed, and in a few days, he will return to the Dutch. Come to think of it, it's strange that after all this time, the older brother isn't looking for a boyfriend. A warning letter has arrived from the imperial family, asking them to stop using weather. The castle gates have been frozen. The vassals cannot leave Edwin Polinoa, as the chief advisor of the Duchy of Indigentia is worried. If this continues, then not only the castle but also the city will suffer. The brunette is sure that he controls everything. Cedric wants to clarify something. In order to stop the blizzard, Edwin must find Caleb. A week has passed, and it's strange that he's gone. No one knows if the boy is even alive after everything. The vassals are only concerned about the weather. Indigentia asks to convey his conditions again in order to improve the weather. Polinoa nods his head. He is not going to put it off because he knows how dangerous Cedric can be. Despite the fact that the prince has disappeared, they complain about the cold, which makes them want to vomit, and the brunette is angry at the behavior of people. Unfortunately, the man does not know where his brother is and what he is doing. We can only hope that he is safe and sound. There are guilds with specialists, as well as information guilds that the Empress uses, but no traces have been found. Only a dark installation. The girl asks Caleb to come to her after the shower to change the bandage. She needs to do this more often so that the condition does not worsen. In a few seconds, the work was completed. Nothing bad happened. In a few days, everything will be completely fine. The maiden does not say that she needs to return to the duchy quickly, because she is simply glad that the wound is healed. The boy wants to say something but is quickly forgotten. They both go to bed wishing good night. There is an unpleasant dream in which Khalib shouts at his brother. He turned out to be a fool because now he will not be able to enter the Temple of Knowledge. The young man always told the young man that he would not become a duke, since it was the blonde who was obliged to lead the family in the future. The conversation is the same, and Cedric said, not to worry. There is another way, so there is no point in worrying. The maids are discussing that the master is getting married. One of them simply said that it was a logical decision. Indigentia refused the title, so now loyalty to the family can only be proven through merit. It will be extremely difficult to find a spouse, because everyone around you just keeps repeating that the curse is contagious. Caleb begins to get angry because he cannot understand whether this is true. The one who spread such rumors is simply terrible. It's strange that Cedric didn't say anything. Perhaps the young man cares about his youngest or simply trusts him. It's not clear whether there will be a woman who will agree to the deal. It would be great if the man told the truth. In fact, the hero is not the least bit different. One thought comes to mind. If Aaliyah were in the wife's place, she would definitely be able to help, thus the brother could prove his loyalty and enter the temple. If a way can be found and the curse lifted, then after the divorce, the boy would say that the maiden is his savior. All three could live in the duchy, and thus they could be happy together. It is selfish to think such a thing. The boy reminds himself that he needs to stop causing problems, so when his arm is completely healed, he will return home. The next day comes the beauty smiles, saying that she will cook something delicious for lunch. The hero says that he doesn't care what is served. A gloomy shadow appears on his face which speaks for itself. The guy has been in this mood for some time now. The darkness has been spreading since the morning and nothing bothers him. The girl is trying to convince herself that it would be better for her to do it. Under no circumstances should she be given any slack so as not to give. For lunch, there will be baked fish and potato soup. The beauty asks to collect some lemons. The boy's steps are too uncertain his mood should improve if he gets some fresh air. A figure in a dark cloak appeared in the room, stretching his hand towards Caleb without thinking. For a moment, Elia hits him on the head with a frying pan. The man looks very suspicious, which makes you a little uneasy. It seems that he was trying to kidnap the Duke. The boy falls to his knees, calling his brother's name. Only then does he realize what the girl has done. Lowering her head, the beauty asks for forgiveness. She should have checked everything first, but her actions were influenced by fear. Cedric should understand everything after his brother explains to him he is a strong man so he can cope with these bumps. Caleb is desperately trying to protect his friend. It seems that I didn't want to believe that Indigentia would find the missing person so quickly. The boy leaves to get water and a towel. The lady is left alone with Cedric's unconscious body, but it seems he has woken up. Only now does the girl realize that she made a mistake because she should have gone herself, leaving Caleb with her brother. Perhaps the hero is simply talking in his sleep, so as not to put pressure on his neck. He should unbutton his collar. Hands reach for clothes, but the brunette deftly stops them. In a rude voice, he asks what the lady is going to do. Sitting up in bed, the Duke immediately gets down to business, asking for what purpose the girl kidnapped the prince. The woman jumps back in surprise. Obviously, it wasn't enough for her to just kidnap him, and she created a barrier so that she couldn't find the house. Everything turned out wrong, so the beauty is about to call Caleb. She is stopped with the help of magic. The atmosphere in the room thickens, and the magic of gravity prevents you from even moving from your place. A blonde man appears in the room on time and throws something in his brother's face. He demands that Elia apologize. The girl, in fact, saved the guy and turned out to be the kindest of everyone he knew. If not for her, the wolf would have attacked and eaten the future Duke. Caleb ends his tirade with how much he is disappointed in the young man and his behavior. The guy used magic. When the girl checked his hand in the evening, there was a wound, and his fingers were damaged. The boy begins to cry and can no longer hold back. He wanted to stay in the hut with Elia, so he did this. If you damage your hand, you won't be able to use magic, but with a wound, you could easily do magic. The hero would have to go back if it was revealed, so he decided to achieve what he needed with the help of deception. The girl does not blame the hero for the decision he made because the child is not to blame for anything. The boy quietly asks if the beauty is angry, but she hugs him back, saying that this is Elia continues to smile while she thinks about why the hero burst in the original story. He never cried. When they part, the maiden will be sad, in which case the blonde offers to go to the duchy together. The boy proposes to marry Cedric. He has already changed his mind about postponing anything. Too much has happened all this time. First we need to treat the Duke, and then we need to talk. The virgin enters the room with mugs but stumbles upon a shirtless man. She has never experienced such shame. The heroine decides not to focus on how things are, so she simply hands over a mug of tea. The guy's body is too perfect, and it's not clear what exactly to look at. He looks better than the guys who were preparing for the competition. The man stands up to ask for forgiveness. It was Elia who hit him with the frying pan, however, she was trying to help Caleb. In order to no longer contemplate the muscles, the beauty invites the hero to sit back at the table, which he does. Cedric received little attention in the original story. The girl was always curious about what kind of person he was. He has a cold look, but overall he seems to be a good person. Changing the topic, the beauty asks why the boy brought up the topic of marriage, which was indeed strange. Most likely what happened was connected with the magic of the fairy, followed by explanations about Caleb. The boy believes that the answer may be in the Temple of Knowledge, which is why he so persistently tries to force his brother to get there. To enter, one must become the head of the family, or perform a ceremony in which an oath of allegiance is taken. Only blood relatives have the right to conduct the ceremony. Although the brunette is the eldest son, he still has different blood. If a person is married, then he has the right, and then he can enter the Temple of Knowledge to find the necessary information. Even though the girl understood the whole point, it's still just as difficult. I wish the situation wasn't so dire. It seems that Caleb really trusts Elia. According to a friend, this is the first time he has seen his brother trust someone like that. There are almost no people willing to become the Duke's wife. There are rumors that it can be contagious. There is no point in worrying because, in fact, this is not true. It was beneficial for someone to spread such information. The two are going to go home as soon as the boy wakes up. The girl does not hold back, asking why they want to make Caleb. It seems that the heroine is really worried about her new friend. The second reason is the desire to listen to the thoughts of Cedric himself. The boy was kidnapped immediately after his birth. The parents searched for the child for 4 years, and after receiving information, as a result, Indigentia was the only one who returned back. Now the heroine remembered that very case of the murder of the Duke's family. On the way from the shelter, someone attacked the carriage, and that's how it all ended. Cedric probably deliberately hid the details of what happened. Since then, some of the vassals hated Caleb. They spread rumors about that incident. In such a situation, the brunette has no right to take away the title from his brother. He must become an archduke to protect himself. In order not to count on outside help, it is better to have your own strength. Even without the Temple of Knowledge, there are other ways. Even if the young man does not know how to express emotions, it is clear that the hero simply wants his brother to survive. Aliyah blames herself for continuing to interfere. She won't be able to help even if she listens to the problem. Even if the hero enters the temple, he will not find the answers, so there is only one option left: a fairy. When Caleb became duke, the girl kidnapped the main character and she was captured by the emperor's family. They must get ahead of the king and catch the fairy first in order to lift the curse from Cedric. To do what is planned, you need to find out who is hiding under the mask. The girl definitely saw her face and name at the end of the novel. The girl smiles, promising that everything will work out for them because now she knows how to lift the curse. If the plan comes true, then you won't even have to get married, and then you will be able to change the course of history. The man asks what kind of method this is, but Elia no longer hears anything. She has completely forgotten about the truth, because it was only mentioned once. Silver hair that takes on a pink tint, eyes like rare stones. This is all how the fairy that Elia is described. The blonde man jumps for joy, unable to believe his girlfriend is going to marry his brother. They travel to the duchy together, Cedric nodding his head but looking a little nervous at the news. The beauty made a sudden marriage proposal, and the brunette surprisingly agreed, although he was not happy. Aliyah herself created the problem. She can remove the curse from Cedric and solve this issue in a second. Now, nothing will work out in any case, because not a single memory of Aliyah remains in my head. All that the beauty knows is her name and age. Unfortunately, she doesn't even have basic knowledge about magic. Besides the bad news, there is also good news. Aliyah always wore a dark hood so no one knows the fairy's face. The lady was thinking about escaping, but the situation has changed a lot. If Caleb finds out that the beauty is that villain, he will use force. The future and blood, which will mark the end of a woman's life, involuntarily looms in my head. There is another problem. When the girl was put in a cage, she died a mysterious death. Perhaps one of the old enemies killed the fairy, or she had an illness. It does not matter whether the heroine runs away because she will die. There is only one way to survive. You need to marry Cedric and monitor the development of the curse. The beauty will have to take off what she put on and then go somewhere to enjoy a happy life alone. The woman will definitely be happy if her dreams come true. Cedric and Caleb will also be happy. Of course, at first, the lady wanted not to interfere, but since she found out that she was a fairy, she simply had to help. It doesn't matter that this is the world of a novel, because people are already like real people. Before making the child too happy, Cedric says that this is not an ordinary marriage at all. The contract was concluded, and when it ends, the girl will go to her home. The blonde only nods in agreement. It seemed that the hero would be sad, but he just pretends that everything is fine. Elia does not gently return to this house. A woman might live in the dukedom after a divorce. She would need a suitable status, so Caleb would become the official guardian. Cedric interrupts the moment of happiness because it will be extremely difficult to fulfill his plans. He will be able to convince the vassals, but Elia's desires themselves may differ. The girl said that she liked being around the boy. He realized that she never spoke about her desires directly. The brunette decides to change the situation and the topic of conversation so as not to make things worse for himself. They should discuss the terms of the contract. Caleb smiles, holding out his hand as a sign that they can go somewhere else. Although the girl felt sorry for the boy because he had matured too early, she felt relieved. It's not that the girl didn't think about the proposal, because she likes spending time together since he looks like you. Everything will be fine as soon as all the memories return. You can stay close and help your brothers. It is Elia who bears all the blame. Everything happened because the woman got into a new body. But now she is already in it, so nothing can be changed. Knowing everything, you can't tell your friend that you want to stay close to him. The best option is to forget about your feelings and focus on solving the problem. The trio stands in front of the castle, which is completely covered with snow. It seems that some kind of problem has happened. The place turned out to be grandiose. The beauty was delighted when she came to such a luxurious estate for the first time. I would like to hope that we will be able to cope. The meeting with the vassals will be soon. Caleb has returned safely to the palace, and we need to inform about the future marriage. There are no other plans for the day, so Ilya can rest in her room. She needs to wait in the main hall for the maid to show her. Cedric gets up since he needed to leave for a meeting. If the guest needs anything, she can contact her whenever she wants. The blonde stops his brother as it turns out that he also wants to take part in the upcoming meeting. In the original, Caleb never participated in the meetings until Cedric fell into a deep sleep. In the forest, the boy remained a simple person, but here everything is different. Elia saved him, took care of him, and she even had to accept the request, so this time everything. The young man can no longer avoid what is gradually overtaking him. He wants to guarantee the safety of Elia while she is in the duchy. Cedric can't believe that a woman has given his little brother so much confidence in just a couple of days. The boy promises that he will be back soon. The lady hopes that everything will be okay. She would like to go with him, but this is not what should be. A girl enters the room. Her name is Olivia, and from that day on she promises that she will serve the. Even the fairy is glad to meet you. They can communicate freely since they must understand each other in their requests. The maid heard that the meeting with the vassals had already begun. Worries about the future duke still did not subside. Reynold Babylon shouts that the one-of-a-kind Duchy of Indigentia cannot do this. Elia does not even know where Cedric is from in order to marry. The brunette asks to be careful with words. Khalib, who will become the future duke, is in the room. Besides everything, the hero loves a woman, so you should watch his statements. At this meeting, the young man decided to share the news rather than listen to Reynold's opinion. The wedding ceremony will take place as soon as possible. The crowd fell silent when Caleb disappeared. The man froze the entire castle, so it is unknown what else he is capable of. If you are lucky, you will be able to get rid of the upstart. It often happens that after the death of his wife, a man remarries so the dukedom will not suffer in any case. Babylon does not understand how it was possible to suddenly bring a bride. If this continues, the plan will be ruined. The Marquis is the only older brother of the previous Duchess Idisil of Babylon Indigentia. He was like an uncle to the family. After the death of Cedric's family, he failed to become the second person in power, but after the curse, a new plan began to mature in his head. First, the hero spread a rumor so that the man would not marry. The next step is to rid the world of Caleb. Reynold could influence public opinion with the help of other vassals, and this opportunity was given because of his daughter Gerald, who became the etiquette teacher of the little duke. After all, Indigentia will become the ruler, and when the curse intensifies, he will have to marry Babylon to avoid falling into eternal sleep, in which case the Marquis will refuse the very person with all the power. Elia's sudden appearance ruined everything. It's strange that she isn't afraid that the curse might be contagious. If this continues, Cedric will end up in the Temple of Knowledge and learn about Caleb's past. Babylon will come to an end. The girl does not yet know the rules of etiquette, so for some time she will attend lessons with Gerald along with Indigentia's younger brother. The brunette begins to get angry. In his opinion, his daughter did not graduate from the best academy to teach rootless girls. The Duke intervenes, interrupting the indignation. The Marquis does not dare to hang such labels on the girl. The young man has never been like this, but now he is using pressure. The beauty will become the future Duchess of Indigenia, so respect is welcome. Babylon cannot deal with these kinds of problems on its own. The problem must be turned into an opportunity. First, you need to kick Elia out of the duchy. She doesn't deserve to be near the beauty is surprised by her reflection because she can't believe that she can be so beautiful after eating at night and that there may be no swelling. Yesterday, the lady received an expensive skin treatment. Surprisingly, the eyes really look like precious stones. Olivia enters the room. The mistress has already woken up, so it's time for breakfast before business. The girl asks to call her as soon as the lady finishes with food and gets ready. Cedric is already waiting downstairs and is not going to linger because, in fact, he has a lot of other things to do before the evening. The beauty asks again before leaving the room to put together the look that the mistress will try on. The maid asks if she has any preferences in clothing. They are very important in order to look perfect, especially in a new place where there are a lot of new of people. The woman laughs awkwardly because she's not used to having someone do all the actions for her and even think about outfits. Everything will be fine if the heroine dresses the way she wants, and especially considering that she herself can cope with this. Olivia was not at all impressed by what was said. The mistress should not try to distance herself, deciding that help is not the most important thing. She is heading to a meeting with her future husband, so she must look as beautiful as possible. The brunette asks to leave the trouble to her and looks quite enthusiastic. The Mr. I wanted to see it at the meeting. Without raising his head, the man starts a conversation in which he asks for forgiveness for waking up the beauty so early in the morning. The first thing to do is ask how she slept in the new place, so as not to seem ignorant. The bed turned out to be large and comfortable, so the girl had good dreams from which there was no fatigue. The next day, the brunette nods because he's glad to hear that the inhabitant of the castle liked the new place. They will be able to talk as soon as they manage to sort out all the papers. Finally, the guy raises his head and looks up from the documents. He freezes and cannot take his eyes off the girl, who looks simply wonderful from her sparkling eyes. You can understand that he is fascinated in this way for the first time. Finding the strength to say a few words, he asks to sit down on the sofa. The woman nods in agreement. At first it seemed to her that the hero froze for a few seconds, but then he tried to return to reality so as not to look stupid. I would like to hope that the beautiful image still made a wonderful. A slight cough is heard from behind a young man with dark hair, would like to formally introduce himself since they do not know each other. Yet his name is Edwin Polinoa, and he is Mr. Cedric's main assistant. The acquaintance turned out to be good, so this man met the newcomers yesterday, and therefore the beauty, of course, remembered him. She smiles welcomingly, saying that she is glad to meet you in return. The reason why the lady was called is for one important matter. The hero is not allowed to finish his sentence because Cedric gets up from. The man himself is going to tell all the details to the girl, so he moves on. Edwin's face turned so red that he looked like a tomato. As soon as the acquaintance left, the magician conjured chairs where the couple sat down to talk. In order for no one to hear the conversation, the hero also installed a magical barrier which it seems should protect against unnecessary ears. The brunette asks if the future wife remembered anything from her past, recalling what he said about memory loss. The woman remembers quite quickly about something that was said earlier, and in this case, it no longer matters so much even if it is suspicious. But there is definitely no other way out. There is some truth in the story, because Elia really does not remember her friends or family. The couple decided to hide the details from the inhabitants of the castle so that they could not take advantage of weaknesses. Fortunately, Khalib simply believed and even promised that everything would be fine. His reaction was rather justified by the usual affection that he had recently begun to experience. Unfortunately, it is not yet known what exactly Cedric is thinking about. His eyes remain the same, lifeless, and his gaze is cold while not a single muscle on his face twitched. I want to build up hopes that the boy also succumbed to. There is some kind of stack of papers on the table which consists of only a few pieces of paper. The man came to the conclusion that it is necessary to agree on the opinion of the bride. If everything is fine, they will be able to quickly set a wedding date, and for this purpose, a marriage contract was drawn up yesterday. Firstly, the contract is for 3 years. If the curse is not lifted during this time, then they will come to an extension under the same conditions. Personal expenses are set at 3 million gold per month. The lady should not hesitate to use the money, but she should write down the expenses in a notebook. Obviously, the guy doesn't want his future wife to fill her pockets with gold, so he remains so careful in his actions. If she doesn't have enough money, you can always turn to your husband to adjust the amount. The woman squints, trying to understand exactly how many zeros are written on the paper, but unfortunately, she cannot even imagine such a huge amount of money. A scream breaks out on its own after seeing the 3 billion that she is entitled to for the entire duration of her. Beauty wants to apologize for her unexpected outburst, but Cedric is the first to ask if this will not be enough, judging by the violent reaction. In fact, if it is equal to the same amount of one, then in her past life, Elia could easily buy a house for herself. I would like to know why they give so much money. But there is no need to ask. There are no flaws in the contract. But still, the lady assumes that this is like a payment for silence. This category is also included in what is written on paper purely to preserve the family secrets, and that what will happen in the amount that is written is compensation for the restriction of freedom. Now everything has fallen into place, although previously it was not known what the man was driving at. The girl asks again in surprise because she herself did not fully understand whether they were going to lock her up in the estate without. If you look at point 6 on the second page, it says that every time on the street a woman must be accompanied by either Cedric or Caleb. It will be even more dangerous to be outside the duchy, so there should also sometimes be guards there along with the Duke himself. Elia nods her head, although she believes that this is just an accompaniment that will not interfere with her walks in any way. In other words, going beyond the limits is almost forbidden. Not understanding what the young man is driving at again, the beauty asks again so as not to get into trouble later. A knightly order will be formed to protect the girl. All the servants around her will be from the brunette's entourage. They will become his eyes and ears, which means that she will definitely not be able to run away or do something wrong. She will have to be extremely careful in what Cedric is talking about can be interpreted in different ways. He will watch every move until the contract ends and their union falls apart. Perhaps for some, this will seem like a terrible option that you definitely need to turn away from. The couple looks at each other carefully for several minutes. Not even paying attention to anything around the woman, sharply says that she agrees to everything, because in fact, she is not going to object to this or that written in the marriage contract that they are. The man looks in surprise, unable to understand whether the beauty is joking or has simply gone crazy. He quietly asks if the lady agrees to the restriction of freedom and to eternal accompaniment from other persons. The answer is another nod of the head, confirming that there is nothing wrong with that to do what we planned. The rule that was written down seems quite logical, because the lady cannot tell all the information about herself since she does not remember anything. Cedric just wants to understand whether he can trust his future wife whom he has known for only a few days. There are no compelling reasons for refusal. There will be. It's quite normal that a young man suspects the one he met in the forest with his brother. It's okay because the girl is used to eternal control in a past life. The brunette nods, saying that he understood what the beauty wants to say, and in this case, things will go as by oil. After 5 minutes, the blonde finished reading the entire contract and looked through each clause to make sure that everything suited her. If the girl wants to add something, it is worth saying right away, so that the Duke has time to consider the proposal if it makes sense. The heroine again immerses herself in studying the sheet that was handed to her. Everything is written too well, so she has no idea what else she can add. She can't believe that the brunette did such a job in just 1 day alone. When the curse of indigenia is lifted, the beauty will be paid 3 billion gold. And with this money, she can buy a house somewhere in the wilderness to enjoy her comfortable life alone. The option seems to be the best, considering that this world is new to her. Moments of fun that the heroine experienced with Caleb come to mind when they were alone and playing in the clearing next to the hut. Clearing her throat, she asks to add one more point after the divorce. She wants to at least sometimes visit the future Duke on the estate and stay with him friends. The young man's face expresses all his emotions, so the beauty immediately rushes to justify herself when she is next to her friend. Memories gradually return. Probably the option she proposed seems too strange. However, the blonde looks like a man who was dear to him in a past life. Because of the silence, there was even more worry. And because of this, all that remained was to quickly ask to forget about everything that was said. The interlocutor agrees. But first you need to ask the brother himself, because he may be against adding such an item. Smiling, the girl sincerely thanks her. The meeting needs to be arranged a little later. But while Cedric still has a lot of things to do, the woman slips out the door but immediately begins to reproach herself for acting too enthusiastically in the office. She wanted to deal with all the problems calmly and live alone. However, something went completely wrong again. Reason and feelings decided to say goodbye just in front of Cedric, which makes you want to get even more angry. The beauty is distracted by the maid who asks if everything is fine, assuring that nothing happened. The girl tries to portray a happy face. It is clear to everyone that the point that I would like to add a little selfish, but it would be great to see the boy, at least sometimes. There was a deafening silence in the office. The brunette looked again and again at the signature sheet that the future wife left before leaving the room. She immediately agreed to the restriction of freedom, which of course was not expected. Edwin, who seems to be too impressed, runs around the Duke with sparkling eyes repeating how beautiful Lady Elia is. He has never seen such mysterious eyes as hers. They say that only a small part of fairies are born with eyes that look like precious stones. The young man thinks that the maiden may be one of them, but is not yet sure of his guesses. Polynoa is trying to find out as much information as possible that the master, the servant, has never met pure-blooded fairies, since this is extremely rare, and only in some cases which are most often not used. Most likely, the lady is a mestizo, although the brunette would easily believe that the maiden is pure-blooded only because the eyes are not the only part that is wonderful, because her long hair is also captivating, just like her sonorous voice, which is like a melody to the ears. The man would like to continue talking about how wonderful the beauty is. But there is no point anymore. Polynoa is given a stern look that speaks for itself, forcing him to shut up. Almost immediately, he quickly says that he is not thinking about anything. It is commendable that the servant was able to quickly assess the situation and did not continue his annoying tirade about loving mortal things. It's not clear what's going on in his head, but it seems as if Cedric began to be jealous. This is just love under a contract, and he values Elia because she can remove the curse from him by entering the Temple of Knowledge. The master is one of those people who hate when someone touches their things. You have to be careful, because you still want to live a long time. Edwin was right in almost everything he managed to say. In a short period of time, Elia stood out, even when she lived in a simple house, and if you think about it, she really looks like someone who has pure blood from one of the creatures. Although the real identity of the future wife is not known, it is immediately clear that she is a very emotional, kind, and sweet person. This girl is incredibly different from the handsome man who remains cold to everything around him or the duchy. Moments appear in my head with a beauty who was so surprised by the money that was allocated to her that she screamed. A slight smile imperceptibly flashes across her face, which will not go unnoticed by Polynoa, who immediately asks what it was just now. The boy immediately begins to walk around, saying that for a very long time he has not seen the beautiful smile of a man who remained sad from the moment the curse was placed on him. Paper flies in his face because irritation goes beyond what is permitted. The young man is going to have lunch with Caliber, who is probably already waiting for someone to come to him. While the Duke is away, the acquaintance is obliged to sort the remaining documents that are on his desk. What was assigned? The contract has already been signed, and even on good terms, there is very little left because this is preparation for the wedding, but it will also be a rush and will certainly take time and effort. The most important thing is that everything goes as smoothly as at the moment. Heroes can't afford to screw up the plan. The Duke remembers the only thing he could concentrate on while they were sitting next to each other. A pleasant floral aroma emanated from the lady, which flowed better than anything else. He must have just imagined it, because it is simply unrealistic to be the truth that is indicated. Because of the curse, the young man lost his sense of smell and definitely couldn't feel the smell that was making its way. Unfortunately, it will no longer be possible to find out the truth, so he will have to assure himself in his head that nothing like that happened, and everything that happened before is something completely wrong, important. It's lunchtime, and the brothers are sitting at the table talking exactly on the topic of what Elia said. The boy can't even believe that his friend showed a desire to be near him, at least sometimes. After they get divorced, a twinkle flashes in his eyes, a spark of hope that will not be extinguished so easily. The brunette nods again to confirm the words he said recently. It seems that everything will work out as best as possible, and even separation will not affect spending time together. The young man still does not understand how Elia asked for this, but obviously expressing your feelings was much easier before, more difficult. We need to come up with something else to make things better. There is nowhere. Perhaps it will be possible to keep a friend in indigentia even after a divorce from Cedric, so as not to arouse suspicion. With his long silence, the blonde smiles and, nodding his head, agrees to write clause in the contract. What follows is a completely different conversation. The brothers must discuss what they will have to do after the completion of the contract because they cannot leave everything to chance. The kid nods in agreement, since he himself understands what responsibility lies on his shoulders in the duchy. If you think about it, tomorrow, there will be etiquette classes with Madame Gerald, together with Elia, who was also enrolled there. As was previously said at the meeting of vassals, the beauty clearly lacks manners in an aristocrat. Now, Caleb needs to focus on his studies again. Since he will be studying with a girl, he will really try to behave as best as possible and be an exemplary student who wins sympathy awards and knowledge. This anticipation of the situation clearly surprises Cedric again. I would like to ask why the future Duke looks so unhappy. It seemed that he would be very happy since Elia would come to class. But in the end, now a gloomy expression is displayed on his face. He was happy when he learned about the girl's request, and even wanted to try his best better for the future. Still, it's too difficult to understand what's going on, and it most likely won't be possible to make the task easier somehow. If the young man only talked about everything, he feels the conversation would be completely different. But it seems that he's not going to open his soul to his relatives, much less more to someone unfamiliar. The weather is wonderful outside, and the sun's rays, which are not too hot, pleasantly warm, the skin representing only pleasure. Elia would like to walk with Caleb, but this will not happen at first. She thought that she would not fit into the castle, but now she is glad that everyone turned out to be so kind. One day has passed since her arrival, but she still hasn't managed to run into vassals even by accident. Later she will need to find out what they are, but for now, this is not recommended. The girl hopes that the crowd of aristocrats will not accuse her of that she dared to marry Cedric, whom they liked. Because of the rumors about the curse, there will be no problems with admirers, so for now you can breathe freely without problems. You need to return Elia's memory right now in order to know what comes next, and so that you can quickly remove the curse moving further, according to the plan for happiness alone. The maiden passed by but overheard the conversations of the maids who were discussing the fact that the brothers were dining together. It had been a long time since they sat even closer than a meter to each other, but this should be good news. It seems that the girls are discussing something personal, so most likely the best solution would be to leave. Elia was about to leave the site, but she heard the cherished phrase that attracted her attention. For some reason, the two are still extremely uncomfortable being around, and this is not to correct. They have a good relationship, but for some reason the atmosphere remains awkward. The maids do not understand how the brothers can behave this way. They talked a little about the mistress, and then dined in complete silence. Unfortunately, looking at such a picture is too painful for impressionable people who take everything to heart. It's strange that something like this is something real in the original story. The guys were very friendly and were constantly next to each other. Once the lady was even jealous of their relationship and believed that this was the standard in the family that you only now is the beauty really thinking about how things are going in general. The two must have already sat down at the table, and they ask Olivia about this. She doesn't understand why the lady sits to eat separately from the others, thereby destroying that fragile idol which the brothers tried to support. In fact, Elia would like to get closer to the maid, but this was successfully postponed until later, because now the mission was different. The woman heard that the family always dined together, so she could not decide to interrupt the communication of those who usually do not have time to be together or discuss small details. That day, Olivia didn't understand where this attitude came from, but when she was asked about it, she just shrugged it off, trying not to change anything in her behavior. Obviously, some problem had arisen that Elia didn't know about, and which has not yet been resolved. The girl did not have time to fully think through the options that had already begun to pop up in her head, because she noticed Caleb waving his hand and calling the beauty to him. The boy did not wait long for the meeting, because only a few minutes ago he came to the place where they agreed to meet. It's probably hard for her friend to be alone in the palace. She's not yet used to the new place, and because of this she doesn't feel complete comfort so as not to burden the boy. The maiden assures that nothing bad happened because Olivia always takes care of her mistress, trying to make her happy stay favorable. Lunch with Cedric went well. The boy says that there were no problems without removing his radiant smile from his face. It's good that nothing happened, Because now you should concentrate on the walk, Caleb suggests moving out into the garden so as not to stand on one place. First of all, the duo went to a beautiful bridge over the lake, and from there the lady almost fell over the railing. Further on the plan, they looked at the garden in which there were many wonderful flowers, and then Elia picked up her friend on her back and ran. They were so tired that they had to sit down on bench to catch my breath. The day was really fun when the girl is next to the future Duke. He experiences constant happiness that cannot be hidden from others. Now the hero knows. After meeting with an etiquette teacher, the young man found out that he would be studying with a friend. It seems to him that disappointment will come when he has to see the immature side that he needs to be ashamed of. He does not consider himself good enough to show his skills in public. Caleb really likes the guest of the estate, so he will not allow her to be disappointed in his behavior, and will try his best to make a good impression. Now that he knows what kind of feelings are melting inside, he wants to do only the best to show it to the beauty who will definitely appreciate it. The woman sits with a surprised expression on her face that cannot be replaced by anything else. She quietly asks why her friend thinks that anyone would ever give up on him because of the immaturity that consumes him. What other people experience is quite natural. No one loves someone who doesn't succeed. If a man fails to cope with his tasks, then Elia will be disappointed after what she sees. All this sounds somehow extremely contradictory. Gerald specifically used the person who is dear to the baby and then made him begin to be afraid of what is happening. And the attitude that he does not deserve the worst thing in this situation is that Caleb believed, since he trusts his teacher, who brazenly takes advantage of it. It shouldn't be this way. But before you start saying something, you should clarify everything and draw a logical chain. It seems that the words were spoken in the morning at an etiquette lesson that the future Duke attended. The guy asks what's wrong, and placing his palms to Elia's cheeks doesn't know if she's angry. Just one look into these eyes is enough to immediately recall the words of the young man who said that he could not eat at night, as his body would look bad at the event. Because of Babylon stories, the blonde began to skip dinner and did this throughout the entire. For some reason, a girl is involved everywhere who had no right to treat a child in this way at all. The heroine asks Caleb to go her palms, since she clearly remembers the last time when she bandaged his wound from a wolf for a whole week. On the palms are visible traces of rods, which were used repeatedly. The girl noticed them on the first day of meeting the boy, but did not think that new ones would appear. Until that moment, the young man specially wore gloves in order to hide his wounds from prying eyes. No one threatened the guy because in fact he was just punished accordingly, because there is a lot missing on the path to the ideal. The hero covered the wounds with a cloth because he thought that people would be disappointed when they saw it. The etiquette teacher is not so bad after all. The man himself is not good enough. And this is the problem. People will hate the kid if he lags behind the program that was given to him. The marks from the blows need to be covered up because they indicate shortcomings, and the guy himself is not good enough. Caleb trusts too much the one who laughs at him, and so now it's more like brainwashing. In the original story, the one who was the trainer was Gerald Babylon. She is also the daughter of Reynold, the elder brother of the previous Archduchess and the Indigentia family. In the novel, not all the inhabitants of the duchy were described in detail, and this person was one of them, which is now not at all for the benefit of. Despite everything, the beauty remembers the girl very well since Reynold tried to marry his daughter to Cedric. His plan failed since the man refused the wedding without giving any reasoning. The vassal's intentions were too obvious, and only a fool could not have noticed this. The hero was going to marry the girl off as soon as the curse began to intensify, because then the Duke would have no other options to survive. If everything that Caleb said is true, then we need to start acting before it is too late. The girl carefully asks if the boy has talked to his brother about the etiquette lessons and how exactly they are going. The blonde did nothing, and this was for the same reason. He is afraid that the young man will be disappointed when he finds out the whole truth, so they rarely talk about classes. Gerald said that it was better not to show her brother the traces of the gifts so as not to ruin the situation. Babylon said that the future Duke should not distract the man too much. During every meal together, the brunette is annoyed even by the presence of a relative. When they have to talk, he feels uncomfortable because the interlocutor is not good enough. The only way out is to study hard and do as much as possible so that there is no disappointment that will remain for the rest of your life. The teacher knows very well what the prince lacks, and therefore disobedience will be considered a direct refusal of the perfection that needs to be achieved. As Aaliyah thought it was Gerald who was the reason for the bad relations in the Indigentia family, their plan to conquer the duchy remained exactly the same. Reynold used vassals to drive Caleb into a trap, and the daughter cleverly manipulated the boy, pretending that it was just concern. The blonde had to believe the words that come out of the beauty's mouth. If the brothers get along, it will interfere with their future. So the lady convinced the ward that Cedric hates him and is so cold only because he is not good enough at what he does. Of course, the young man believed and began to keep his distance in order not to irritate the only relative he cherished. The Duke probably thought that his brother hated him and therefore did not want to communicate even at dinner when they met for the first time all day. Unfortunately, Indigentia does not know how to express his true feelings. He needs to take more care of Caleb so that he does not feel deprived at such an early age, and so that love can be felt as a result of what happened. The man thinks that the young man trusts Aaliyah more than him, which is partly true. Despite the fact that Cedric knew the fastest way to get rid of the curse, he was ready to give it up for his brother, because he understood that having become the head, he would not be able to protect the boy in the future when he grew up. In the original story, the man, right before he died, said some important words that made it clear that he would never hate his little brother. Because of the little things that had developed, he said that he would not have done everything that he had done over the years if the young man were indifferent to him, they should have talked much earlier. Of course, everything could have been different, but Caleb shouldn't be blamed either. The boy is in such a state that he couldn't think with his head, and it all happened because of Gerald and Reynold. They needed exactly what happened in the end, because there was no way the brothers were supposed to get along well when expressing their feelings. The girl gets up from the bench and squats down in front of the child. She gently presses the boy's palms, hoping that this will help a little. She had to pay attention to what was on her hands back then. On the first day in the forest, these were definitely not ordinary scratches. However, now time has passed and nothing can be returned. Trying to reach Caleb, the beauty says that, in fact, this way of teaching children is not correct. The guy should not be punished under any circumstances, and he should not feel as if everything is his fault, even if a simple action is done. The boy asks again in surprise, and from his look you can understand that he is really confused. Not everything that the etiquette teacher says is the truth, and this must be accepted as early as possible. And you should also not fill your head with nonsense that she makes up in order to skillfully manipulate someone. The blonde is still trying to argue something. He was so attached to the woman, and he was so brainwashed that giving up without questions is simply unrealistic. Gerald was selected after an interview in the duchy, but education cannot tell what kind of soul a person has who is engaged in one thing or another. When the young man heard Babylon say that this was all for the sake of the future, he probably felt something inside the lady wants to understand what exactly was going on in the boy's heart. And he says what was expected in those moments. It seemed that this was true because he just doesn't try hard enough and therefore isn't good enough. Everything that Caleb says cuts to the very heart. This boy does not deserve a bad attitude. But in order to move on, you should specifically study what was said, thinking again about everything that happened in those days. The hero is silent, because moments with different people who look disappointed. Then the boy rather felt sad. He would like to know what is true and what is a lie. But it was not clear who he could ask about what was happening. At first, the best option was to approach Cedric, but the young man was afraid that he would hate him even more and immediately changed his mind. Thoughts never left his head, but only continued to swarm like a flock of bees. The blonde would never want to be hated. So there was no choice. In any case, he tried to improve secretly, hoping that one day he would be. The girl quietly calls the man so that he looks at her. It is necessary to somehow change his perception, so that later in the end, he does not reap the fruits of the dishonor that will befall him. The man looks desperate since he has no idea what to do next. The blonde really likes his new girlfriend so much so that it cannot be described in words, and therefore he wants to believe in everything that she tells him. But at the same time, the brain is still confused. It's stupid to realize that this state can continue further and that it will not be possible to get out of it. The boy should believe. After a conversation in which the beauty supported her friend, she took him to the room so that she could rest a little. The woman herself is incredibly angry, especially at Gerald and Renaud, who over the years behaved like those people who did not have even a small drop of conscience left. Suddenly, there was a desire to go and express everything right to their faces, so that they would finally understand that doing this without punishment would not work. I would like to hit these two at least once because they deserve it. But instead, it is recommended to do something. From the thoughts in which the fight with the Marcus's family began, the girl was distracted by Cedric, who called her from behind. It seems that the future wife was walking with his younger brother all this time, which is even strange since more than a few hours have passed since they left the chambers. The girl turns away, saying that overall it was quite fun. The way she looks away makes Cedric embarrassed because you can tell that she is not in the mood after what happened. Before quickly leaving the corridor, literally running away, the beauty asks to forgive her so as not to seem too rude. If the young man is an adult, he should behave like an adult, and he should take care of his younger brother, who is left to himself and on which enemies are now playing out. Everything that is hidden in your head will probably never be said out loud. Nothing else matters. No need to think about what has already been done, because in fact, it is not worth it at all. Right now, you should think about the next etiquette lesson which will happen tomorrow. Gerald cannot continue to behave like this with impunity, as if there was nothing in it. First of all, it is necessary to separate the father and daughter who work in pairs in order to achieve the ideal recipe. In other words, it is necessary to fire the teacher so that after Reynolds' words, she cannot harm the boy who is not to blame for anything. Babylon is a vassal, and if his daughter is removed from her position, this will cause a wave of criticism. It is difficult to do this alone, but this is precisely why the maiden conceived a division that will significantly help her. They will not be able to agree on anything and will literally driven into their own trap which they set. Other thoughts are spinning in my head about what can be done to annoy Gerald. There is not so little time left, but not much until the marriage contract ends before the beauty flies out of the duchy. The first to follow is the teacher who It's morning, which only means it's time to give Babylon a hard time. Olivia hears her mistress getting ready to leave and asks to let her know if anything is needed. The beauty does not think about much, but in her heart she sincerely hopes that everything will work out for her. She smiles so as not to arouse unnecessary suspicion towards herself. It seems that the maid did not suspect anything because she has no idea what is going on in the head of the future duchess. The night was quite difficult. The woman was thinking about what was happening from the very beginning of the evening and could not stop. Unfortunately, all this was in vain, and at best she just needed to go to bed because she could not come up with a single option on how to get. No matter how difficult it is, you cannot leave the situation as it already is and let everything take its course 100%, because otherwise it will only get worse. There is only one way left on how you can fire a woman without revealing the situation with Caleb. The operation is called Use Cedric. He, like the older brother, does not even suspect what is happening in the lessons. But he will have to find out the truth, otherwise the chaos will continue until his death. The hero is not going to help if all the details that lie are not explained. Firstly, you need to find some shortcomings in the first lesson and tell Cedric about them in order to completely capture the young man's attention. You need to continue doing the same thing, repeating that the lesson was extremely strange and does not at all fit the standards of the duchy in which they live. Secondly, if everything works, the man will probably doubt Gerald's abilities and find a new teacher to replace him. The beauty herself would not be able to compete with Babylon, given that she does not have the right to fire incompetent employees, but the head of this estate will be able to figure out the situation much faster. Even if the plan that appeared is a failure in any case, there is no other way out. The beauty has no idea what else she can come up with, but in the end, everything should work out. She is already heading towards the office, anticipating what she will be able to notice In other novels, the main characters are usually smart, and miraculously solve problems that appear on their own. Things are completely different with Alaya, because she knows absolutely nothing, and can only guess at the options of how they even do something so miraculous that expected in their every move. In fact, a real option would be a fight, and in it whoever loses leaves the duchy. The girl wishes that everything would be a little simpler, but there is no harm in dreaming, so she hopes that one day it will just become a little easier. Now she needs to try for the sake of Caleb, he is distracted from his thoughts by a boy who waves his hand in greeting, to show how glad he is to meet him. He asks if the beauty liked the food she ate, and she nods. Next time they simply must have lunch together, because such company. This time, the hero looks a little more alive, but the lady can't stop worrying about him, because there are still too many attitudes left in his head. The boy laughs, saying that it's true, but it would be even more wonderful if the three of them ate. As a close family, he never had a good relationship with his brother after the tragedy, but now it's time to change everything. Alaya pats her friend on the head. She is next to him, and now everything will be fine, because she will try to take care of the baby as best as possible. Gerald will not be able to treat him carelessly if someone is in sight, and will most likely get angry, which will help fulfill the plan with Cedric and the report on the teacher's behavior. The door opens, and a woman appears from there, asking the two to go inside. The prince and lady look at the one who curtsies, presenting her full name and even status. From this day on, she will teach etiquette to both. She believes that she is not good enough, but expects help in the future. The heroine seems to have been hit on the head, and she cannot get over the shock that caught her. I want to ask what kind of catch is hidden behind such behavior, because the friend turned out to be completely different. Different from what she imagined in her head. In order not to seem strange, you have to squeeze out a return greeting and say that she is glad to meet you. The blonde immediately finds herself one step away from the beauty, talking about how wonderful her interlocutor's voice is. It's not clear what's going on at all, and this makes her clearly uneasy. Then she turns to Caleb, who is required to answer the questions put forward while Elia will start with the simplest thing. With sending the boy aside, the woman again stands opposite the future duchess and asks her to make the simplest movements. The girl must walk around the room exactly as she usually does in order to show her capabilities and help the teacher evaluate how she behaves. Elia seems to freeze in ice because, in fact, she didn't even think that Gerald would teach for real, so as not to let her friend down. The beauty takes several hesitant steps that look like a person has problems with coordination. The beauty smiles, admiring the gait that just demonstrated. In order for everything to be perfect, all that remains is to correct a little, and then we can move on to the rest of the aspects of the aristocrats. The heroine still cannot come to her senses, not being able to believe that everything that was said about her gait. The actions seemed too predictable because the girl had already come up with a plan applied to this situation. The smile does not bode well. The kindness that came from Babylon was only the beginning of the same thing, because in the next lesson the beauty again told the lady about how she is great at everything she does. In the third lesson, the same actions were repeated because the praises of everything were persistent. The heroine does not understand why the teacher behaves this way. If she had treated the girl badly, she would have been kicked out almost immediately after one complaint from the future duchess. But this did not happen even in the fourth and fifth lessons. Elia was so lost in thought that she was a little lost in space. Gerald's voice attracted attention, but the strangest thing is that the girl suddenly became serious. The girl says that she teaches many nobles, and this is actually true because it was mentioned in the book repeatedly. Compared to others, the lady does not learn from her mistakes and learns everything too slowly. Even after many explanations in detail that should have helped her understand clearly, her face acquired a sad expression, because if the lady continues like this, Mr. Cedric will be very disappointed. The beauty looks with a question mark because she would like to understand what they are trying to convey to her. The woman remembered the Duke, who was mentioned several times, but it is not clear why he should be disappointed by what is happening. The blonde insists that the man's bride concentrate and did her best to achieve results. At a wedding, a fairy should look decent if she tries as hard as she did from the very beginning. She will be able to do everything she planned and shine in a beautiful dress next to her love of life. It is better to trust Babylon because it is already clear. The woman looks at the smile that remains on the beauty's face throughout the entire conversation. Finally, the whole puzzle has come together because it is immediately clear that Gerald is trying to secretly manipulate, talking about what needs to be done, and that if this is not done, people around will be disappointed. The girl knocks over chairs in a fit of anger, screaming about how she hates everything around her. She turns to her father, asking why she has to teach something that they asked to add to the lessons. Reynolds tries to calm the woman down, saying that he can't do anything about it. After all, you have no right to violate Cedric's orders. The mother intervenes to also influence the essence of the conversation. Everything that is done only for the sake of making her daughter an archduchess, and she knows this very well, in order not to eat herself with remorse. It is worth calming down and coming to terms with the immediate future, which for now impossible to change. Screaming won't help. Babylon lowers her head, asking the Marquise how she dares to do this to him. She is literally betrayed because of an agreement with her father. Even if what was conveyed was an order from the Duke, the decision was made immediately even without consulting the teacher herself. The woman studied diligently at the academy for many years because she wanted a better future, but now everything will be in vain because she will be obliged to teach a commoner. Reynolds reminds him of his promise. When Caleb is expelled from Indigenia and Cedric becomes the ruler, the girl will be made his wife. Very soon, the Duke's family will be completely in the hands of the Marquis, who is doing everything to bring this moment closer. The beauty should be patient and wait for the right moment. No one should find out what the lady is doing in class with the guy. But there is no need to worry about that. The man already completely trusts the teacher, so no problems will arise. It is unclear how Aaliyah managed to win the favor of his lordship, but in such a short period of time, she would not have been able to completely win over the boy who already does not trust anyone. Even if she finds out something, she will not do anything because she has influence. She doesn't exist. If something happens, the girl should be kicked out almost immediately, just in case Gerald does not fully believe the words. So he clarifies whether he will definitely be able to do what he planned and receives a positive answer, which makes him calm down a little, and his heart beats less often. A commoner remains a commoner, no matter how hard he tries to break into the aristocratic ranks. Increasing his status will not help hide the shortcomings that the girl has in abundance. What remains for Babylon to do is to take advantage of the position and reveal all the shortcomings to the Duke. The blonde will remain the ideal daughter of the Marquis, which she is. She is allowed to manipulate Aaliyah as she pleases, who will do nothing. The beauty's face is filled with bright colors, which testifies to her joy at what she can do. Her father can count on her. Now, the heroine stands in front of the future Duchess, continuing to smile. In fact, there are still worries because there was very little time to establish relationships. In any case, it seems that it is easier than it was with Caleb. So you should move on without retreating from your goal at this rate. Only a small part will remain to be completed and then receive a prize. Aaliyah nods her head, saying that Gerald as a teacher can clearly see what she is missing. The woman was also worried about this when she first arrived. But now she understands that with such an assistant, they will make her an ideal candidate for the wife of Indigence himself. In Babylon's soul rejoices that everything is. The unexpected begins, because the bride talked to the man about what worries her. She is just a commoner, while Cedric is a nobleman. So people will probably judge the current couple. The maiden said that it is impossible to be together, if everything ends up. It won't end at all as expected. When a warm wind blew in the flower field, the Duke approached his future wife and said the very words that warmed his soul. He doesn't care what the fairy's status and abilities are. It doesn't even matter what others think. A blonde can be herself because she was loved because of her personal quality. The whole conversation ended with the couple kissing. They said cherished words about how much they love each other, and then enjoyed the light, warm wind. Since then, Aaliyah cannot get out of her head what is now the most important thing. Status and abilities pale before love. In fact, no one cares about small things because they only think about their partner's smile, his hugs, or his ability to support in difficult times. The smile does not leave his face, although it seems feigned, and Cedric will never be disappointed in his woman. Gerald tries to restrain herself and agrees that the gentleman is completely right in her heart. She does not understand why everything turned out this way. Because the student should feel a little scared. At first, the girl received only compliments, and then they began to insult her because of this. She should a certain feeling of resentment. Babylon's face literally says everything she's thinking about. She's not trying to brainwash and get rid of the girl with all her might, but her plans are falling apart before her eyes. At first, the lady incredibly wanted to hit the beauty on the head, but in order to avoid problems, she restrained herself. Caleb didn't hear anything, so they were lucky the boy is too engrossed in a book to interfere in the conversation of the elders. Gerald must be ready to be the first to fly out of the duchy, in which she has no place in order to finally get rid of her studies. The beauty asks if she is finally finished, then work on your gait. I want to finish as soon as possible so that I can take a break physically and mentally from the disgusting face. The interlocutor looks confused, but not for long, because after a second smiling, she suggests moving on to in-depth study, which will help to Babylon is kind of ominous, but it will be worth it to see what happens next. The maid comes out from behind the door, bringing out the shoes that were prepared especially for this activity. The beautiful color and precious stones look wonderful in such a combination that makes you want to try on the shoes. The beauty cannot share her desires because the heels turned out to be too high for a beginner in gait practice. The teacher does not pay attention to the slight embarrassment offering to immediately try on the shoes that were brought out. This time, Aliyah will have to go through what was offered to her, and here she will not be able to avoid it. Trying to resist the beauty, asks if this is too early for a beginner. But in order to make progress, you need to reproduce real-life situations that will arise at the ball or even a wedding. It would be nice to get used to wearing high heels. Gerald is clearly tongue-tied, judging by the way she actively talks about what she can do. Perhaps the lady will still be able to walk a little, and now she needs to pretend that she is still interested in the lesson the girl is going to put on a pair right now. Before her rebirth, Ilya rarely wore heels, or more precisely only a few times in her entire life. Since her hobby was wrestling, the woman tries to take the first hesitant steps, after which she is asked to start walking a little faster. It seems that the teacher wants the student to fall to the ground as quickly as possible, but this does not mean that she will get what she wants. Raising her head higher, the girl assures herself that she will succeed. The Marquise underestimates the abilities that the girl has because, no matter how difficult it is not, we would have to reach the end. It is not clear what Babylon is up to, but in order to complete the task, she has to step further. The heel suddenly lags behind the shoe, which is why Aliyah quickly flies to the ground. The pain spreads throughout her body. In just a few seconds, the roar attracts the attention of the boy who all this spent the time reading something enthusiastically while sitting at. The blonde runs up to the lady, asking if she is okay, and asking if she can get up from the floor. The lady was interested to know what the woman was up to, but now everything fell into place. I can't wrap my head around what happened because it was impossible to even think that the beauty would decide to break her heels, thereby organizing an assassination attempt. I want to express everything that I think about this teacher, but the girl understands that it is better for her to continue to restrain yourself to the last. Gerald cannot believe that the shoes the maid prepared turned out to have a broken heel, and looks worried as if she herself was not the one who arranged everything. She does not think that this is really terrible and should be punished for this, despite all the privileges which that lady fortunately does not have. Since the heroine is responsible for what is happening in the lesson, she promises to punish the maid who is preparing the shoes. Ilya objects but does not have time to say anything else, because a worried Caleb runs up to her who asks if her friend is okay. The young man should not worry once again, considering that the blow was not too strong. The blonde offers to finish the lesson, which cannot continue in this state. The beauty tries to object because she believes that everything is fine with her. There are no bruises. Babylon intervenes in the conversation and agrees with the young master. The lesson is over, and Elia should have a good rest, so that tomorrow she can continue with a new reserve of strength. Her face remains just as concerned. Even if there is literally 1% of the truth, there is nothing left but to agree. This woman behaves like a child, which makes her more annoying than ever. She won't be able to express all her thoughts, so the heroine tries to leave as soon as possible so as not to mess up with what everyone around her expects from her. The girl was taken to a doctor who should examine the marks that remained on her legs. Fortunately, the bones are completely intact, so this will not be a problem. And there is no need to worry because on one of the legs there are only a few scratches that will heal quickly. Obviously, the teacher was not trying to cause too much loss, but just wanted to disgrace the Duchess. If the girl uses the ointment that the doctor gives, then the skin will heal much faster. You need to wash the wounds as often as possible so that they do not fester. Next time you should be a little more careful and carefully check the shoes that are. Caleb is waiting for the moment when the extra ears leave them, leaving only the two of them. He still looks worried when he asks if everything is really normal. The beauty assures that nothing happened because she is really strong and will be able to survive everything that will happen to her. The boy sadly lowers his eyes to the floor to cheer him up a little. The woman wants to hug and therefore calls him to sit down next to her on the bed. Before the hero does anything, he reminds him that he has one more lesson left, which is boring complete. The Duke promises that he will return very soon as he is free. The girlfriend nods her head, promising that she will rest all this time and will look forward to returning. The boy says goodbye and then heads forward along the corridor, still somewhere in his thoughts which drag him in more and more. Soon, Olivia visits the girl. She is glad that the mistress does not have a fracture or something worse. She had to be very scared when the news about the injury and the lesson became known. Elia once again asks for forgiveness for making her worry about her condition. The maid was even more surprised when she saw how Indigentia Jr. tried to carry his friend on his back. The girl tried to assure him that she could walk on her own, and in the end, she got there herself, just with support from the outside. The moment was awkward, but at the same time, extremely sweet. The Duchess should not move or go somewhere at least for one day, or even better, several. If she needs anything, the girl can always call an assistant, who will be only too happy to bring everything she needs. The assurance that nothing has happened more don't work. Everyone around is worried about Elia, so she has to agree so as not to sadden her friend. As soon as the door closes, the woman exhales, trying to convince herself that she did a great job and that nothing bad happened. She needs to get to the end and somehow blame Gerald for deciding to play the game. The girl wanted to kick the etiquette teacher out of the duchy, but in the end, she just made Caleb worry once again. For some reason, there were no expectations in my head of what the woman had done, and this makes it strange to realize that she is really so insidious. Manipulation is not the only thing the weapon that this person possesses. All that remains is to tell Cedric everything that happened. No one knew that Babylon would be so unpredictable and would act so quickly so as not to waste time. What happened was only the beginning of the bullying that the teacher could prepare and which she would successfully blame on the maid. The Marchioness was born into a rich family. All her wishes were immediately fulfilled, but this did not change anything because she wanted to get more. Caleb had already matured, so she would try to remove him from the environment of the duchy which their family wanted. One has only to look at Gerald's actions to understand that all members of Babylon are the same as droplets of water. If nothing is done, everyone will suffer, and especially the ingenuity who do not yet understand what kind of snake they have warmed on their. Elia will take upon herself all future actions that she will perform, and therefore turns to Olivia. She asks to call the etiquette teacher for a conversation that they should have. This time, the decisive attitude will not go anywhere, and if you go forward, then only to the end. The Marquise must be gotten rid of, and for this the plan with Cedric will no longer help. The blonde found herself in the room after just 10 minutes, a worried expression on her face and sly eyes. That's all you can focus on. The beauty asks how the woman's leg is doing and says that she's glad to hear that everything is fine. She's worried about. The lady was not allowed to work normally for hours. In order to start that very conversation, the main character politely asks Olivia to leave the room. Gerald stands and smiles all this time, realizing that most likely everything will be tougher than we would like. First of all, the blonde is trying to find out why she was called as the Duchess. Asked the maid who committed a terrible act was not punished. It is strange that the mistake was forgiven despite the wounds that remained on her legs, but this indicates that Aaliyah is a real angel since she decided not to ruin a person's life. The woman knows what was right because the problem with the heels did not arise because of that girl. Obviously, the teacher is going to continue this performance. Even if you don't need to smile and be friendly, you won't be able to hide your insides. But the true intentions that are black pitch black, they will also come out. The Marquise chuckles and then nods her head. There are only the two of them in the room, so we can move on to the real conversation. It is clear to her how Elia got into the duchy, but she should know that the influence of the Babylon family here is very great. We can assume that Reynold, one of the most important vassals, just like his daughter who teaches the youngest brother the future head. If a girl thinks that she has become someone important, then she is probably so mistaken. In fact, the fairy is just an empty place, and this will never change. She is one of those people who lose their heads from a grain of power that comes to them in your... I would like to ask why the blonde is even doing this, because in fact it is completely wrong she should feel sorry for Caleb. But from her actions, it is not clear whether this is true. She is doing this for the future Duke. So there is definitely no reason to feel guilty. No, to achieve success, you need to push the unnecessary out of... Lady Elia appeared in the duchy at absolutely the wrong time without her. Things were much better and went smoothly, but as soon as she arrived, everything went completely wrong according to plan, which greatly angered Gerald. The beauty claims that she supports Caleb, but in fact the teacher knows him from the cradle, which is simply unacceptable. Compared to the teacher, the woman definitely loses about this by a large margin in about a week. She could not get to know the young master better than another person who knows absolutely everything about him. The boy trusts Babylon most of all, and in this case everyone must understand his position and how to behave in accordance with... Of course, there is some truth in the words of the interlocutor, because Caleb spent much less time with her than with the teacher. His story unfortunately was not described in detail in the novel, so it certainly won't be possible to understand what exactly is in his head. Now, when the lady learns more about the boy's life, she reproaches herself for the careless thoughts that were initially in her head. There was probably a lot of such rubbish around him, and in such a situation, he became a duke on his own, trying to improve the... After everything that seems to have become familiar, the maiden still decides to continue the conversation. Very soon she will have to leave the duchy, but while she is nearby, one can teach her a lesson. It's the beauty's turn because she looks simply disgusting, and especially in the eyes of other people. It is necessary to allow a woman to experience what her victims of manipulation usually feel, which she actively uses without even being ashamed. A dangerous fire lights up in her eyes while she shouts something about the rootlessness of the girl The reaction she gets is exactly what the beauty wanted, so there is no time to just give up. She feigns surprise that Gerald usually uses such expressions in his speech because it is indecent for a noble lady. It's hard to simply ignore a person who is lower in status than you and insults any qualities. The academy never taught you how to speak properly, so the lady continues to press, remembering that aristocrats must watch their words and behavior, remembering the lessons of etiquette. The blonde's patience is over, and this was more than expected. In addition to everything she said earlier, the girl raises her hand, asking how a commoner dares to teach her, but a second later, her hand is decisively intercepted, not allowing her to achieve her goal. Virgo turns to her interlocutor, but she cannot listen attentively because the question of why the girl is so strong will be eliminated in her head. It does not suit Elia that anyone is trying to solve the problem with violence, even if there are other more correct options. It has already been said that when the Duke's future bride appeared, everything immediately went wrong. But in this case, nothing will change, because the woman will continue to interfere. You can't even think about doing something because Caleb doesn't deserve to be used by such rotten people. The door opens, and a boy's voice is heard. The surprise on his face cannot be described, because Cedric also appears in the room along with his assistant who greets the young mistress. I can't believe that the blonde himself brought the others with him because of some problem that had arisen. Gerald pulls away, and shaking off her hand makes a face with tears in her eyes. She complains that the lady suddenly grabbed her and did it with such force that everything went dark before her eyes. From such impudence, the beauty cannot even say anything. The young man is not going to stand on ceremony, and this time such a performance will be over too quickly. The daughter of the Marquis no longer works on their estate. She is asked to leave the duchy right now and not be forced to use the force of the knights who can help at any moment. The woman asks again, while remaining in the same state of shock as before. The gentleman himself says that he does not know, because it is absurd to simply kick out someone who has been with him since childhood. Obviously, the beauty did not expect such a turn of events. The blonde opens her mouth to justify herself, but she can't find what she should say. She can't believe that something like this could even happen because Caleb was always on her side no matter what, even after all the use of obscene language or rods under the pretext of training. The girl should know better than anyone that the decision is well-founded. The guy's palm unclenches, and everyone present can see the red marks that still remain. They have nothing more to talk about, so the girl is obliged to leave the estate. Surely Elia completely brainwashed the young man, and now nothing can be changed. Babylon worked for so many years to make this child obedient, but now all efforts were lost. In a few days, the last chance must be used. Therefore, leaving the blonde alone, the woman runs. Explanations are not long in coming. The young master does not learn his lessons well. So he had to use light corporal punishment for educational purposes. The elders misunderstood, so it would be best to clarify the situation, which is already in complete fog. The Duchess interjects, in no case should you resort to corporal punishment, and now you won't be able to justify yourself, because in any case, this is not education. The lady is receiving an aristocratic upbringing for the first time, and probably that's why it's difficult for her to understand the whole essence of the conversation. The brunette, who had been standing aside all this time, appears behind his future wife and hugs her with one arm, as if providing protection. Gerald tries to ask something, but she is quickly stopped in order to keep her silent. The virgin will not get away with anything. Just like that, she hurt the ruler's close people, and for this, she will have to pay. After the discussion, the man will hand over everything to the Marquis of Babylon, and then there will be no turning back, certainly. For now, that's all that can be said to such a person. The plan that the family made failed, and this even makes me feel uneasy, because everything was planned to the smallest detail. The beauty cannot give up so easily, so she pulls herself together, asking something about the evidence that she did all this. The wounds on the master's hands and Lady Elia's heels are a separate story, but the fact does not change that there is no evidence at all. The Duke has no right to accuse Gerald of what he did, because otherwise there will be a scandal which will then develop into something more. Obviously, the beauty decided to go to the end in order to stay in her place. A voice is heard saying that everyone knows what happened. Words are heard throughout the room that the boy is not working hard enough, and to become a duke, he needs to try harder. The woman takes out a rod, also saying that Cedric is very worried about, because the younger brother is not good enough. Gerald repeatedly assured the guy that if the head saw the shortcomings, he would be even more disappointed, from which nothing good would come of it. Polynoa brought the sphere on which everything was written down in order to show the Marquise that she had no right to compete with such a powerful family. Caleb would never have dared to show something like that in front of others, but obviously the lady was mistaken when she saw the thing. The voice does not stop saying that the boy should behave like an adult, since he is far from a small child. That's all was done for the sake of the future. At first, the young man really listened to the teacher, because he trusted everything she said. When Elia said that it was strange, he couldn't believe it right away, despite the fact that he really liked his brother's future wife. The girl's smiling face kept popping up in his head. The blonde has already said that he is not beaten every day, so there is no problem. And also, when he is good, he is treated more than nicely. At that very moment, the teacher's words came like a lump to his throat, and this made it difficult to breathe. The realization came late. Only when Elia got hurt did the hero finally realize that something was wrong. In order to understand what was next, he had to tell everything to his brother and shove his fear far away, because even if he was disappointed, it would save. Girlfriend Caleb did not reveal too much about everything he had in mind, and therefore came to Cedric almost immediately. The boy simply has to say what has been going on for a long time, but so far nothing has worked out behind, as if Gerald is standing, who is quietly saying that the Duke will be disappointed as soon as he hears the whole truth. Perhaps the law teacher and brother will hate him even more, just like when the acquaintance leaves the dukedom, the boy will truly be left completely alone, and in this case, no one will help him. A man pulls him out of his thoughts, throwing a cape over the baby in which he then wraps him. The young man carefully asks if Caleb is okay, because it is clear that his thoughts are reflected on his face, making the hero worry about his condition. It is quite cool in the office, and it is immediately noticeable how the future Duke is trembling. Edwin was ordered to bring 10 more. It's amazing, but you can finally feel the same warmth that was in Aaliyah's house in the first week of being there. It's scary to even think that the boy forgot that his brother takes care of indigencia in the same way as before. All warnings were only in my head because of the teacher, and so the boy talks about it, wants to tell what happened to him in recent years. Now, the hero knows that he did more than the right thing. The best decision would be to stop watching the video before the situation worsens. The beauty puts her hands on her friend's shoulders, gently asking if everything is okay with him and how he feels now nothing bad will happen. The blonde continues to try to convince everyone around that she cannot be treated this way because she is from the family of the Marquis of Babylon. The woman obviously decided to go to the end, so she asks the Duke if he knows this information, since he behaves this way. The man exhales calmly in order to somehow control himself, and then gathers force in his palms, which is concentrated more and more. The lady should be grateful that now Cedric is just standing still instead of taking action. Realizing that everything could go too far, the young man carefully grabs his brother's hand in order to allow him to calm down a little. No matter how much he hates his former teacher, he has no right to use force against her. A smile appears on his face now. Everything is really good, so there is no point in being afraid of what might happen. Collecting his thoughts, the hero turns to Gerald again, nodding and agreeing that she comes from a noble family. Marquis Reynold is the most popular vassal of the duchy, and his reputation speaks for itself. The girl actively nods her head in order to quickly agree with everything being told. So far, she does not understand the words in the right sense, and there is no point in trying to answer. Such an outstanding family should be an example for the rest of the inhabitants of the duchy if everyone does what the girl did. Then, in any case, nothing good will come of it. Then a harsh sentence will be passed, so the man advises to within a month, everyone in indigencia and even in the capital will learn about this incident. Gerald's face at the same second shows horror that can no longer be hidden. She tries to gather herself to start saying something, but it's too difficult. Later, it will be decided whether to expel the beauty from the family, or perhaps she will be spared. The gentleman turns to Polinoa, who responds immediately. Aaliyah needs to calm down, so she is taken outside, so that she has more time to devote time to her. There is deathly silence in the room. The beauty is unable to move from her place, and therefore it is difficult for her to say anything. If the young man nevertheless tells the whole truth to society, this will be the end of the Babylon family, because the reputation after this can no longer be restored. For some reason, that's all didn't turn out for the better. Gerald tried to be as perfect as possible all the time, but unfortunately, collapse overtook even her. And this cannot be changed in any way. It's easier to blame the one who is really involved in this, because now, if you think about it, it's all Eliah's fault, who appeared out of nowhere. The girl is taken out into the fresh air, where it becomes easier for her to breathe. The relief becomes almost instantaneous, and this can be considered a good sign. Finally, it's all over, and it's time to breathe out with peace of mind, when a skirmish developed. Babylon had such a look as if everything happened because of her. The woman thinks that she really did a great job, so there is no doubt Cedric calls his future wife only to thank him for the way everything turned out, because this is the best that could have been imagined. The ending did not disappoint, and now Caleb is safe. If it weren't for the heroine's merit, the boy would continue to suffer from violence. And now, when he finally managed to sort everything out, all he had to do was breathe out calmly and not worry the family would finally not be destroyed at a progressive rate because of strain. Aaliyah is sure that she did nothing and believes that she is right, because even if she tried to do something in the end, it was the indigencia family who dealt with the problem. That very conversation in the garden cannot even be counted because it lasted a few minutes. The brunette also insists on thanking the beauty. If not for her, the head would also continue to live in complete ignorance of the situation. Until this moment, the man believed that the youngest simply hated him, for some hidden reasons that he could not tell. It seems that the hero still managed to talk calmly, from which one can only smile and be happy for them now. Cedric just wants to apologize for the rudeness in communication that seeped in from the very moment they met. The conversation turns to the moment when the man hugged the beauty indoors. He thought that he needed to show how important she was to him, and so that the vassals bribed by the Marquis of Babylon would not dare to contact the future Duchess, thus providing her with a kind of protection. Perhaps everything happened because of the behavior that the Duke himself showed. Any physical contact will be carried out only after the direct consent of the bride. The girl nods in agreement, thinking that she came across a calculating man who would never commit any terrible actions on towards her. Her gaze is attracted by the blonde who joyfully stands nearby, smiling. She lowers her hand to her head to pat him on the head. The baby is truly a cutie, and therefore only one glance is enough to understand that such a person will always bestow only a good mood. The young man believed the words that his girlfriend told him, and this really means a lot now that everything has happened. No villain will prevent anyone from becoming an archduke who will be an ideal candidate because of his personal qualities. You need to continue to smile with your radiant smile as if there are no problems. If only the fairy could regain her memories, everything would be in order. Sometimes she thinks about how much she would like to help this family, saving them from the unnecessary problems that she created on her own with the help of a spell. Perhaps very soon dreams will become reality. Now, Cedric needs to return to the office. The work that remains unfinished will not finish itself, so the man hurries to say goodbye. Before moving somewhere, they look at each other in confusion. Before making the last movement, the young man again asks for forgiveness for his rudeness. He leans closer and carefully picks out one strand of hair in his hands in order to then gently kiss it as a sign of gratitude. The hero wanted to check something, but so far the lady does not quite understand what the question was. She looks at the guy in bewilderment, who asks if the girl wears perfume. Aaliyah has never bought anything like this before, and does not intend to make purchases even in. Caleb appeared behind him, putting his hand on the beauty's hair and looking sullenly at his older brother. It is clear from him that he is clearly jealous, but this makes a smile appear on his face, because when he behaves like this, he seems too cute. At the very first meeting, the woman thought about how much the little Duke reminded her of Yuna, but even after several weeks together, nothing had changed. When she rushed to the hospital, she used deodorant and got a little on her hair. At first, the girl didn't understand what was going on, but then she laughed when she heard the nurse's words. The young man was talking about how his sister smelled completely different, and at the same time he smiled because then he managed to touch the ends of her hair. Everything should continue the same as now at a calm pace that will not disturb anyone. Gerald was sent on a carriage back to her estate. She cannot believe what she had to see and hear. It is quite problematic to accept her failure because of another person. A commoner must pay for what she. I can't believe that the two love each other more than anything, because they look simply ridiculous together. A man couldn't just fall in love with a person like Alia. If Babylon the Younger is really kicked out of the family, then the end will come for her because her father won't even want to communicate anymore on distance. After the girl returned home, a council of vassals was convened, at which the expulsion of the Marquis Renaud was discussed. The Duke remained in silence almost all the time, while real chaos was happening around him, with elements of shouting from all sides. The families who were bribed by Babylon opposed the expulsion. The sins of the magician's daughter were great, but this does not diminish her contribution to the development of the duchy. So hasty conclusions would be very inappropriate. Everyone tried to say the same thing in order to rally against the reprimand. The vassals who were oppressed by the wizard did not miss their chance, which finally came. The days consider the incident almost tantamount to treason. The Marquis must have known about the affairs of his own blood, and therefore Cedric is obliged to expel their entire family so that the poisoning of society ends. The brunette tried to avoid what was happening, but it was difficult. A disgusting sight opened before him, in which those gathered were pointing fingers at each other and screaming. The only joy is that earlier he listened to Elia and did not take Caleb with him, who could have suffered another. You have to be really smart to understand that it will be impossible to get rid of the influence of the Babylon family overnight. But you need to understand what changes this will entail. In order to drive out the hated Reynold, you need to be as careful as possible and reduce his power gradually. The brunette came home after all the madness that he had to experience. He had absolutely no strength left, so he falls into a chair trying to catch his breath. His wife carefully asks how it all went. First of all, the people bribed by the Marquis say that they managed to avoid expulsion, so the biggest problem for today has been solved. Then they should build a new plan for how to restore their authority. Given the current situation, it would be best to first express gratitude and then lie low. The old man cannot leave everything as it is, so he will later file an appeal to reduce the period of publicity. For this case, the family agrees with the decision that was made. Babylon are blood relatives of the former Archduchess, and if Cedric is going to expel them from society, then he will have to take each of them under his wing. An ominous smile is displayed on his face, which indicates that the hero has already thought through what he is going to write in the appeal. The most pleasant thing, perhaps, is that the young man will have to consider the application because of his connections. The next morning, the good mood immediately disappeared because the future duke dared to send the letter back to the estate when the man saw the seal of the House of Babylon. He did not even open the envelope. The most important thing was to understand what the brunette said and why he decided to do so. I can't believe that the brat dared to reject the request without even reading what was written. The servant distracts the Marquis from his angry thoughts, notifying him of the arrival of a message from the duchy, which was most likely sent by Indigentia Senior. The young man considered that it would be useless to read the letter, because there probably was a request to reduce the period to 15 days. Babylon should be grateful that the period was not increased if the family does not leave the estate. They will be able to leave it after a while, but if they disobey, it will only get worse. Because of the anger that came over the Marquis, he began to throw away the papers that were lying on his table, shouting about how unfair it all turned out. His wife and daughter came running almost immediately to ask what had happened. The adopted degenerate dared to stand in the way of a real aristocrat. And therefore now neither he nor his future wife without a family will be left alone. The magician promises himself to do everything so that they know all aspects of the horror that they actually deserve. Literally, a week after Gerald was fired, the atmosphere in the duchy has completely changed. Olivia sees off the main character while continuing to smile radiantly without stopping. The girl stops noticing the young master with the new teachers. He had not expressed any of his emotions before, so it is extremely pleasant to see him more open in the presence of others. Caleb had indeed changed a lot when the two first met. He was cold and quiet. The boy did not say a word, although he was in pain because of the wound and the leg that he twisted while running from the wolf. If you look from the outside, you can easily say that the brothers are extremely similar. The girl understands that she knows little about Cedric. She managed to learn a lot only from the youngest. In the novel, the guy was not described properly, so now this makes him even a little sad. The young man rarely talks about himself. But you can't blame him because Elia herself, even if they have a contract marriage, it is strange not to know anything about their ally. They have almost figured out the wedding dresses, so the man plans to stop there and discuss the details tomorrow. As the beauty thought, the future husband quickly makes all decisions. In the wedding culture of the empire, you can notice that the wedding table consists only of the newlyweds' favorite dishes. You can handle this yourself. The brunette is not at all picky, so you can choose dishes to suit Elia's taste. It would be nice to eat your favorite food together, because it lifts your mood, so the beauty does not understand what the problem is. If you think about it, it's too late to talk about anything. But the hero is not going to remain silent. As you know, a curse has been imposed on him, which gradually fills his body, growing like. Currently, all 5 of the Duke's senses are gradually being paralyzed. The girl screams in surprise, even if she herself understands what exactly is being said. That's all she can say for now. The young man did not express himself quite correctly. It's just that all his senses are gradually dulling, as if he is slowly falling into sleep until the curse is lifted. This process is irreversible. So far, we can't hear either smell or taste, so the Duke doesn't really like eating. He again asks to make a list of wedding dishes to suit his taste. People in the duchy know everything, so there will be no questions. The fairy's curse in the original story gradually dulls the five senses. First, the sense of smell and then everything else. And it happened in that order. When you are dead, but at the same time still alive when nothing in the world can wake you up. This is the worst the novel described details when Cedric had already lost his sense of touch. Fortunately, the man only lost his taste, but in such a situation one cannot feel relief. The brunette asks about the strange expression on the interlocutor's face. Last time the young man asked what perfume the bride uses, she would like to know what they were talking about and why she was asked such a question. For the guy, everything that happened also remains a mystery. When he smelled flowers or some kind of food, he did not feel anything for a long time, but he senses the smell emanating from Alaya. The strange thing is that without feeling the aroma of tea, the hero can also clearly feel his future wife. The beauty quickly realizes that she has a huge problem. Everything can be explained in one sentence: the woman is the one who put the curse on the groom. The conversation is interrupted by the rain, which Caleb enters the room calling his girlfriend. The couple turns almost synchronously. The boy smiles, asking the girl to prepare potato pancakes as promised. Not understanding why the baby suddenly decided to behave this way, the girl still nods her head before getting up from her seat. A few minutes ago, the young man was still sitting in his office doing business. He finished earlier than he expected, but did not know what he should do now. The boy would like to be with Aaliyah, but as he knows she was busy preparing for the wedding yesterday's dinner, and lunch made it clear that she was really busy because the maiden constantly ran away quickly. The hero hasn't eaten the food that his friend prepared for a very long time. The soup or potato pancakes they ate before the rain appear in his head. Since there are no clouds outside, there's no point in asking for a dish. Something is definitely wrong because the heroine also said that she lost her memory and doesn't know anything about herself. She shouldn't remember how she cooked potato pancakes for someone, but it remained in her head. Perhaps the lady remembered something while cooking, and if Aaliyah's memory returns, she will immediately leave for her home. I would like to spend as much time with her as possible while she is in the duchy. Now the hero is standing in front of the beauty asking her to prepare that same dish. The girl is glad that the topic has changed. Having come running in a few seconds, the baby literally expected that they would start cooking together. For the first time in a long time, the beauty would be able to demonstrate her culinary skill. The brother should also go with them because lately he has had a poor appetite, the girl asks, without words, if the man told him about the loss of taste, and he nods. Everything happened because he did not want to cause worry to the boy. The man should be fine. Aaliyah's pancakes are the best, so you'll have an appetite almost immediately. Without any problems, it seems that the rain started because of... The cook watches the lady fry what is called abstrusely in order to cook something like that. Quite a lot of oil is required. The woman loves deep fried when the pancakes are fried in a lot of oil and their edges become crispy. The man nods, seems to have no idea what we are talking about. The boy looks at the plate that was placed in front of him, realizing that the dish is of a slightly different shape. When they were in the house, the heroine grated potatoes. But then she tried a different method. The pancake is cut into many pieces and then passed to the table. The baby rejoices at how tasty the dish turned out, just like usual. The young man accepts the potato pancake since the youngest makes him try it. It must be hard for the man, but he still agrees, because he does not want to upset anyone. Aaliyah is embarrassed because what is happening is only because of her. She needs to get her memories back as soon as possible, lift the curse, and feed Cedric delicious food that he will like. The man takes a bite of what he has prepared, but within a second, the fork falls out of his hands, and he freezes with a surprised expression which frightens. Panic begins all around while the cook thinks that there was poison there. A picture of her imprisonment is already emerging in the girl's head while Caleb asks to call a doctor, but his brother stops him. Nothing bad happened, and the man apologizes for such a reaction. He just hasn't tasted food for a very long time, and now he's extremely surprised by what happened to him. The blonde freezes. It turned out that Indigentia could not eat normally all this time due to a dull sense, but this means that the curse is beginning to gain momentum. The brunette apologizes for not saying anything earlier, and he is assured that there is no need to apologize. He was just worried that his brother might get worried, and that's why he acted this way. The girl is happy to see that these two are having a normal conversation about something important, because before this, misunderstandings continued to accumulate due to unexpressed feelings. They return to the same topic again, because it is not clear why the man suddenly feels the taste of the food that Aaliyah has prepared. He believes that this is all individual and depends directly on the condition. We can only hope that the future husband will not think that the bride is that same fairy. Even if he thinks about it now, she is the key to lifting the curse, so the conversation will not begin ahead of time. The man looks intently at the beauty who is shrinking under such pressure. Blushing a little, the guy asks to put him some more food that he can enjoy. Evening finally came, so the girl moved to the bathroom. She was incredibly tired from being constantly nervous being in the company of her future family. Olivia brought in the towels, but noticing the mistress's condition, asks if everything is okay. The answer was gratitude for helping her take a bath. The maid should be the one to say thank you. Since the girl arrived, the atmosphere in the duchy castle has improved a lot, and this has made the soul feel good. The first time the brunette arrived at the estate, it seemed to her that people shouldn't live here, and she almost didn't even hear conversations. After the fairy's arrival, she was able to feel the warmth in the castle for the first. No one expected to see the prince and Cedric happily talking like they did today. They really enjoyed the time spent together, which already means a lot. The future duke has changed a lot, but in fact this most likely also applies to his older brother. The expression on his face has changed and become softer, so Olivia sings Odes of Love. The girl has no idea that the marriage will be a contract, but the heroine has no right to upset her. Just like that, she is not the person who should be thanked at all, so she remains silent. The beauty cannot continue to smile because she still knows that the problem started with her. Sometimes she has to cook her future husband's favorite dishes in order to somehow smooth out her existence. The trio walks along the corridor for no apparent reason. The rain stopped, even though thunder had recently erupted, which could be heard throughout the entire estate. Caleb smiles lightly, trying to hide his mood from his girlfriend. Cedric has long realized that without a doubt, the magic of the weather of his brother, who came up with it himself, was involved. Such power requires a huge amount of effort, so many people tried to use it further, suffering repeated failures when no one managed to comprehend the basics. For more than 100 years, the magic gradually When the guy was 18 years old, he succeeded in magic, which he managed to revive almost immediately. He decided to teach Caleb the same, but he said that he couldn't do anything, no matter how hard he. The boy does not have as much magic as his brother, so you cannot try endlessly considering that he is not even a genius. How great art is impossible to learn even after time. In the end, the boy failed because Caleb escaped. I can't believe that his brother caused a thunderstorm this afternoon, and it even lasted for several hours. If you think about it like that, it is strange that the young man was able to use magic even with a wounded hand, and succeeded in this after constant failures that befell him for months. There is no information available about herself, and it is also impossible to find a single word about her family. The beauty turned out to be a mystery that will be difficult to solve. The aroma that can only be felt from Aaliyah makes the mind explode. The girl is truly full of the unknown, but this does not mean that you should give up after starting. The woman opens the window to carefully look around. The weather outside is simply wonderful today. The trio gathered to have lunch together again. The beauty is thinking about what kind of dish she can prepare, but does not understand which one to choose from, the thousands known to her. When she thinks about food, she feels a certain peace. The last few days have made me nervous, but finally the wedding date has been set, and everything seems to be going quite smoothly. There is still something that is nagging at me. The girl does nothing but think about the main character of the story, Daphne Marinist, about whom she previously read on the page. If the woman lifts Cedric's curse in the intended way, then Caleb will no longer fall into darkness, and there will be no conflict between the imperial family and. The plan is more than normal, but in this case it is not clear what the beauty's future will turn out to be. She deserves better, so the reasons to worry remain in place. The prince sits with Daphne in the royal garden. He smiles, saying that his friend, as usual, looks simply wonderful. Compliments always capture the girls in a special. The boy comes from the Impresent Empire, and his name is Renoa de Perutio Jatispi. In present, the child's appearance is ordinary, but beautiful hair and glowing eyes add charm. The beauty thanks the prince for saying such sweet words, and in response, of course, also says that the boy looks great. Just as always, the maiden is the Duchess of Marinest named Daphne. The couple continues to talk, and then the young man gently kisses one of the strands of his interlocutor's hair. The servant distracts him a little from his lesson, asking the prince to step away for a minute. Compared to before she returned, the girl is really happy. She knows that she shouldn't complain about the happiness she experiences, so she tries to stay positive. The heroine is actually tired of communicating with a 6-year-old girl. She herself is the same age. But to this, we can add the 16 years that have already been. Marinest is the main character of the book, and she returned to the past after her life was cut short. She again lives her 6 years of life in the same place and with the same conditions. A world where magic is taken for granted is not strange, because in this case, life here becomes much easier for some people than before, and especially with status. Before returning, the woman could not control even simple magic, not to mention the use of family magic, which was one of the most powerful in the entire kingdom. It is for this reason that everyone is suspicious of the girl's pedigree. She wilts every time she thinks about what is happening around her. Of course, the father scolded all those who had any suspicions, but this did not give the desired result. The Duke of Calvados tried to create favorable conditions for his daughter. For some reason, the man did not teach the beauty any magic, and he did not have any expectations about her in general. It was believed that the girl was not capable of anything, despite her good origin. The appearance of Calvados, who was busy dispelling rumors, made the woman even more unhappy, so she was constantly literally depressed, wanting everything to end. As time passed, a large banquet was held to celebrate Prince Renoa's birthday, an event where everyone seemed happy to just attend. When before the start, the boy briefly went out onto the terrace to get some fresh air, a fairy appeared in a robe. Because of which her face was not visible, it was clear that her intentions were unclean. At the moment when the prince lost his vigilance, the woman placed a curse on him, and Daphne, who was nearby, as many said, simply could not protect the imperial family. As a result, all the blame was placed on the girl, and as punishment for her failure to help him present, she was sentenced to death. Daphne was destined to be executed in prison as soon as she became an adult. One day, the girl was visited by Gerald, who had previously taught her etiquette like everyone else in noble families. The beauty sighed, saying that she was very disappointed in what was happening. The woman worked hard and maintained a good relationship with her, but now she can't believe that all this time was wasted. She shouldn't have taken on Marinus from the very beginning. If the beauty could not use magic, she should have sacrificed herself left alone in the cage. The beauty only blamed herself for her inability to use spells, and for the fact that she was not loved by her own father. Sitting in place and continuing to bemoan her shortcomings, Daphne did not even notice how the front door opened, and then the figure of Calvados appeared in front of her, who looked tired. A few minutes after the meeting, the girl was already running away, heading somewhere deep into the forest where they could not find her. The man asked to first leave the drainage and then simply hide. There should not have been a single night on the way to the forest, and this would have allowed him to run away without looking back. The father said that he didn't need to know anything else, but he himself decided to stay near the dungeon. The girl cried, but tried to ask why the brunette came so abruptly and changed his mind about his daughter. In fact, he would like his daughter to live happily, doing only what she herself wants, even if she cannot. I can't believe that the father never gave up. The reason he dealt with all the rumors was because he wanted freedom for the girl who deserved it more than anyone else. The young man just wanted Marinus to run away somewhere far away, and she really tried, but still fell in the middle of the forest. The memories make you involuntarily shudder because the girl really tried to escape, but she failed because of the knights who helped her disappear. The beauty thought that it was all over, but she can't believe that she has another chance to live her life the way she wants. Peace of mind is the most important thing. After returning to somehow live a normal life, the girl thought about how to prevent the fairy from attending the banquet, or how she could avoid communicating with Renoa as much as possible. It is not clear why, but in this life, the woman appeared 10 years earlier, and the girl used the magic of the mirror shield, which she had never studied, and which she did not even know. Shield magic is the power that summons a shield made of mirrors. Such magic is capable of reflecting all curses or rays of magic, and is also the only one capable of blocking powerful fairies. In fact, the current royal family became so thanks to the rebellion. It all started 200 years ago when the first emperor was also one of the powerful beings. The imprisons. The current rulers raised their uprising. They possessed a related imperial powerful magic, a mirror shield. With the help of the magic they used, they managed to achieve success in their plan. Repelling the emperor's curse, the family made sure that he died. Everyone was surprised to see Marinus suddenly using mirror shield magic, but the ducal family originated from the imprisoned sideline. Before returning when the girl went to the Temple of Knowledge, using the teleporter she found in the attic, she may have unknowingly mastered the shield magic by reading books there. Even if we assume that what happened is true, there are no fewer questions. Daphne is distracted by Renoa, who asks for forgiveness that it is so late, but he has work, so he will have to say goodbye for today. The hero again compliments his friend and her amazing magic. He would also like to quickly become a pro in the business that they are going to do. Even if the beauty had not begun to teach the prince at the age of 10, he would still have begun to study with His Majesty the Emperor in the Temple of Knowledge. Thanks to the boy's efforts, the first results should be seen very soon. The imperial family keeps the girl at a distance, worrying that she might become an obstacle to Reno's becoming crown prince in the future as he ages. Since the beauty has the emperor's magic, they can claim that the maiden may also have the right to inherit the throne. In a past life, everything went wrong due to the fact that the girl got involved with their family. The nanny handed the newspaper to the lady. She began to read them, to find out what changes had occurred because of her. And this became the very habit that she no longer even wanted to get rid of. On the piece of paper is written news about the Duchy of Indigencia with the daughter of the Babylon family. Now, a lot of attention is directed to them since the marriage will soon take place. The very first page shows Elia, who looks extremely awkward, as if she is being filmed for the first time or was forced to silver hair that turns pinkish along the length, and pink gemstones like eyes are reminiscent of the familiar. The girl looks just like a fairy because such data is very rare among ordinary people. While the beauty was blocking one fairy spell, Cedric somehow fell under another. It's a pity that it will no longer be possible to help here because only the Temple of Knowledge remains. Turning out the window, the woman is going to rest for the rest of the trip and not think about anything, but right next to her, she sees a figure in a cloak who extends her hand. The trio is having lunch as usual. The baby is smiling, repeating again how much he likes that they eat together all the time and that they never have a fight when they are at the table. It's great that Cedric can also taste the food, and the whole idea doesn't seem awkward. The lady likes the fact that there is a peaceful atmosphere around, which is like a reward for diligent cooking. The Duke appears calmer, even if perhaps it is because he is able to taste the food and fully enjoy what is long gone. The words of Olivia are still playing in my head, who noticed that the master had changed quite a lot. The maid saw his smile for the first time. Edwin interrupts the idol. There is something that requires the attention of the head, and from his expression it is clear that it is something bad. Polinoa looks very serious while he is telling something. The news that the servant brings comes like a bolt from the blue because Princess Marinest was kidnapped this afternoon under circumstances that not many have seen. The beauty jumps up from her seat, screaming in horror, and asking again, hoping in her heart that this is all not true. She just missed the additional problems that will now appear. The Duke asks how the lady even knows this man, because now it seems as if they are close, since there was such emotion in the voice. Some excuses are used that are worthless. The girl did not intend to behave so cheekily, but now she remembers that something similar happened in the original story that she read in a past life. She is worried. In laying down, after Daphne returned and got rid of the curse, a fairy suddenly appeared in front of her and in a violent fit of anger tried to kidnap the plan was unsuccessful due to the fact that the beauty already possessed some powers. The girl was locked in the basement prison of the imperial family, and then she died mysteriously. The original plot was quite primitive and the girl had to concentrate. Aelia is not the one who kidnapped the baby, so there are more questions. If the current situation turns out to be exactly the same, then most likely the girl is not that same fairy who simply does not remember anything from her past life. Everything fits together, but this does not mean anything. It may be that two people have the same names and appearance features, and at the same time have nothing in common. The world seems to have turned upside down. The girl cannot be one of the twins in question if everything continues according to the original plot. Then the only way to solve Cedric's curse will be lost. The Duke asks if the bride is okay, thereby bringing her back to reality. The expression on her face said it all, but she justifies it all by saying that she was thinking for a second. To begin with, you should hold your thoughts and not try to get involved in something that isn't your business. First of all, the fairy asks where exactly Marinest, about whom they are talking, was kidnapped. She disappeared on the way to the duchy from the king's castle where she was walking with the prince. Perhaps the exact location is known, but this question does not seem to be something that needs to be asked of a third party. There is still no exact information. The expression on Caleb's face does not bode well when he lowers his voice and asks so what his brother is not obliged to deal with the pressing problems of others. As soon as the incident occurred, Duke Marinest officially approached the major families with a request for cooperation, but he did not forward the request to Indigenia, deciding that it was unnecessary. Perhaps this all happened because the magic of the family is not suitable for searches and investigations. The girl is trying to justify the father who is simply worried about his daughter. Magic can only be used by family members, and in other words, it also requires a symbol of the one who controls certain people. The heroine has heard that some families can turn into dogs, and some work as detectives with psychometry. Gravitational magic does not go well with search. Lady Elia speaks the right words, but they also sent requests to families that do not specialize in the search or are not as strong as the others. Help was asked even from Maishalat, who has material magic. Only 3 families are known who are openly obliged to represent the entire family and point to the truth. Officially, only those 3 families and no one else are allowed to enter the Temple of Knowledge, which is the exclusive property of the imperial family. A lot of knowledge is stored in that place that is inaccessible to the rest of society. About the desires, you can find out the innermost secrets of each family that contributed. It is because of the temple that families try to keep a balance with each other so as not to overdo it. The fact that they sent a request to the Maishalat speaks for itself. Without question, this is an extremely offensive phenomenon. Now, not only Caleb but also Cedric looks extremely angry. It cannot be that 2 families will begin to cooperate. First, everything must be discussed. So the young man turns to his brother about this. It needs to be checked before jumping to conclusions, even if the man was cursed because the princess protected the prince. He has always maintained good relations with the Marinists, and such an attitude is simply unacceptable. It was an accident while defending Renoa, so he didn't even ask for compensation for the damage caused in terms of falling into a slow but sure sleep. Since the family did not turn to the Archduke himself, then they must be hiding something just like the Indigentia family itself, and this will have to be found out as soon as possible. The Duke orders people to be sent to the capital at that very second to sort everything out. This is something that must be done as quietly as possible without prying eyes and ears. The best thing that can be done is already behind us. The beauty cannot listen to how they make decisions without her, so she strives to intervene, not intending to leave the situation to chance. First of all, the situation should not be left to chance. She does not just think, but knows about the consequences that may follow what happens. It is indeed better to carry out actions in silence, but you never know what will happen if suddenly information leaks out. The 4 of them will take control of the situation by volunteering to help the Duke. The woman has no idea how to convince the groom, and this is a problem if the one who kidnapped Daphne is a fairy. Then Cedric's spell cannot be broken. You need to quickly come up with a convincing answer. Another person cannot help the young man. So, once again, you need to check everything carefully so as not to make a mistake. The best option is to go together to the capital. The heroine knows the original plot, so she must check everything on her. As a result, the assembled family nevertheless agreed to do as the girl demanded. They dressed up like commoners and went to the city to clarify the circumstances undercover. A few hours ago, panic began, which we then had to try to reduce to no, only 3 people went to the capital and no more to better study the issue. Olivia still didn't want to understand that maximum secrecy was needed, she thought, and decided that it was worth thinking about the task at least once again, since it could be extremely dangerous there. On the other hand, everything is not as bad as it seems, because the strongest person in the present and the strongest in the future go together on a mission in which they will be able to protect their mistress. When other maids gossiped about the girl, she stood aside. No one liked that the maiden followed an ordinary commoner who was not worth attention and service. It was believed that the beauty did not have a drop of pride left, which is why she behaved this way. In the midst of the conversation, Elia appeared and asked about the products that she could. The boxes with provisions are extremely heavy, so there is no point in helping with such thin arms as the sorceress. She will not be able to carry such a weight, so the best solution would be to step aside. One of the maids once again repeats that they have a lot of work and asks the beauty to leave them. Instead of listening, the heroine lifts one of the boxes onto her shoulder with one limb. Unfortunately, this is all that she can carry, being an overly weak person. Since everyone is much stronger than her, they will probably be able to carry several times more cargo than they originally said. Olivia still remembers what happened with admiration and wonders how Lady Elia remains as strong as ever, as if she were one of the best. The lady notices the dreamy expression on her friend's face, so she anxiously asks what she is thinking about. The answer remains primitive in order to forget about the story in her head. In any case, safety should come first, and even more so for such a noble person. The beauty turns to one of the passers-by to find out a few answers. She and her family came to the capital to have a little fun, but the atmosphere here is a little alarming. The girl asks what happened while hinting that she is not pressing at all. After talking for about 15 minutes, they can finally free themselves. It would be nice to take a look around, since it seems that this is the first time for the two to be within the confines of the Imperial Palace. First of all, they must find the kidnapped Daphne as soon as possible because she is probably scared. They need to find out whether the fairy is the main culprit, and whether there are any differences in the story from the original. In the novel, Elia cast a spell on Renoa when he was only 16 years old. But for some reason, after Marinus returned, he was cursed at the age of 6, which will remain a mystery. Something forced the fairy to cast a spell 10 years earlier. Maybe the incident itself happened in the original story, but in this world, everything goes with slight deviations. The beauty still continues to think that she should deal with this mistake alone. She cannot leave everything as it is, otherwise events may worsen even more. Cedric, appearing behind him, says that he is beginning to see more and more Imperial Knights, so they should all move towards residential streets, where no one will notice them. Of course, I would like to think more about the chain of events, but for now they should focus more on the kidnapping of the princess in order to avoid the collapse of the union of the three families. We have already managed to interview several residents of the capital, and if you wander around the area longer, you can get a lot more important information. So far, the plan remains just as primitive. 2 hours passed, and unfortunately, it was also not possible to find even a grain of something to cling to. It is quite difficult to find something useful among the useless. The couple sat down on a bench to rest, while Caleb decided to look around. There are a lot of beautiful people in a beautiful place, and this makes my soul calm. The girl hopes that they will quickly lift the curse so that Cedric and Indigentia can live the same way as before. The brunette has his own storm going on in his head. He remembers how the bride reacted in the first minute and does not understand whether she knows anything related to what happened earlier with the disappearance of Marinest's carrot. The young man foolishly hoped that he would be able to find out at least something about Elia when they arrived in the capital, but nothing happened. It was immediately clear from her face that the lady was definitely hiding something, and this secret was terrible. In the distance, you can hear the voice of a baby calling his sister. This is a normal conversation between guys asking each other if they had a good time that day, but the future wife sitting next to her suddenly freezes. The girl also unconsciously wanted to respond, although she understood that it could not be Yun. The man puts his hand on his shoulder, as if as a sign of consolation, but a second later the beauty already jumps up from the bench intending to hit the road. In order to no longer communicate with someone who begins to behave suspiciously, the woman turns to Caleb to ask him to move on. He looks somewhere to the side. In order to understand what is happening, the woman lowers herself a little and looks carefully at the counter where they are standing. Lemon lollipops and who knows more and more problems. The young man likes lemons more and seems to really like lemons. It seems that the hero just ask. So he runs away. If everything is fine, then nothing bad will happen for a long time. They can't eat street food so carelessly. The hero doesn't give up saying that candy is enough to relieve fatigue. Eating something refreshing will help the mind. In order not to spoil the relationship with the guy, the woman simply goes with him to the counter and smiling asks for 2 pieces of lemon candies. The clerk behind the counter hands one out, but seeing how cute Caleb is, almost immediately turns away in silence as he licks the candy, which tastes perfect. Sitting down on a bench, the trio continues to look around. It used to seem different, but now it really seems like they are a real family who went for a walk. The same brother and sister were again near the counter. It's nice to look at them, so the woman no longer hides her beautiful smile. The boy asks to buy one of the lollipops for him. The brunette orders 1 piece of candy, saying that it's okay if she doesn't eat it. The young man looks sadly at the girl but remains with the same calm expression on his face. Perhaps this is not the first time this has happened. Aaliyah jumps up from her seat. Almost instantly, she asks her friends to sit on the bench while she goes to the 2 holding out another lollipop. The baby stands with her eyes lowered to her head for a split second. It seems to Aaliyah that she really doesn't want to eat, but then she timidly accepts the gift, holding out her hand. Cedric, standing aside with his mouth open, watches how the beauty behaves, who strikes up a conversation with the seller. It seems that she came to relax in the city with her family. The 2 chat about the beautiful square and other things to see during the day. The woman heard that now is not the best time to wander around because of what happened. The atmosphere in the capital is extremely restless. Everyone is on edge, and no one can still believe that the princess was kidnapped in broad daylight. A commoner found out about something like this, which remains a mystery. There must have also been something on the notice board for regular workers, something that stated that the girl had disappeared yesterday while returning home, and because of this, a search expedition had been assembled. The Marinus family is known to be one of the 3 families that have supported the empire since its founding. Regardless of the ruler, they exert their influence the most. The news that the Duke's daughter has been kidnapped is a big blow to the status, and only those who have access to a large amount of detail in the information about what happened should know the truth. The girl would like to understand who to contact in order to know all the aspects and finally be able to find Daphne's location. For now, such luxury can only be dreamed of. The boy who was standing next to the counter addresses Aaliyah as his sister, about to say something. The Duke gets up from the bench, promising Caleb that he will be nearby, but will go closer to his future. As it turned out, the boy brought a gift, which is an extremely important thing. The girl lights up with joy, because she did not expect that someone so nice would think about her desires and be capable of gratitude. There is something small in her hands, and opening her palm, the woman tries to squint to understand what exactly is in front of her. It takes a fraction of a minute to understand that it is. The Virgin jumps on the spot and begins to fumble with her hands, not answering questions about what happened. Because of a stone on the road, the shoe gets stuck, and now the body rushes to the ground. At the last second, the man decides to save the beauty and uses magic that makes the body hang in the air, as if soulless. Both come closer to their friend, asking if she is okay. Caleb is worried the most, but Cedric is also grateful for literally saving him from the blow that could have happened. If the man were the main character from another novel, he would grab him by the waist or do something cool and romantic to make a cute impression. Behind him, the voice of the same seller is heard, who is unable to shut up. His friend shuts him up while he continues to look in surprise at the Indigentia family, which possesses such magic. Their family has been revealed, so now the duo introduce themselves as Alonzo and Jordan. It seems no one else saw this incident, so it can be considered a full-fledged miracle. It seems the couple secretly went out for a walk before the wedding, because there is no other explanation. This is not a walk, because there is still something to be figured out together as quickly as possible. Alonzo previously said that the princess was kidnapped. Now the girl can openly ask questions because the man knows something for sure. He was unable to keep his mouth shut. The girl definitely heard what the seller said, but now he awkwardly scratches the back of his head, trying to avoid an unpleasant conversation. His friend gives him a skeptical look. In fact, the young man was recently selling candy in another square, and there he heard the buyer talking about everything that had happened as if he was well informed. The returning carriage from the Empire to the Duchy just suddenly disappeared right before his eyes. In a split second, what was said makes him feel a little uneasy, as if it could. At the place where the crew disappeared, someone in a robe stood motionless, And then this person also disappeared in an instant, following the girl who was no longer in the square and even more so. The clothes matched the fairy's clothes in the original. At first, the guy thought that the carriage was moved by magic because, as we know, it belongs to a prominent family of magicians. Judging by the circumstances, kidnapping is a more correct explanation which can even be applied. Cedric clarifies where the buyer who told the story came from. That person arrived from the main gate of Elphium Square since he said that there was construction going on there. Now he definitely came from the side of the main road. The main route for supplying magical energy laid there is in the process of expansion. The construction site has literally blocked off the entire area, so for several days no one even dares to approach it. There will definitely be fewer witnesses in such a place. The person who committed the act made a huge mistake. The main energy supply route transfers magic from the Emperor's castle to the residential areas. This is the path where the wizard stones are laid. Crystals help prevent the indiscriminate use of magic in the castle, and in other words, if you use magic nearby, it will not be in. The stone should have left a trace of a person who used a spell to help the carriage and himself evaporate. The original said that this would require high-rank magic, but for Cedric it would be simple. Virgo asks if anyone else knows about what was just told in secret. It seems that everyone in the square knows about what happened since the very morning. The brunette ominously asks if they are lying to their faces right now, to which he receives a reaction full of fear. Alonzo and Jordan themselves have not seen it in reality, but they are definitely not lying. The two help the family quite a lot, so the Duke hands over a bag of gold. There is no point in staying near the shop anymore, so they say goodbye while the maiden tells Caleb that they are leaving. The kid looks with round, glowing eyes at the candy counter for the last time, which he imagines it seems that he would like to eat one more piece. The friend is weak when it comes to people, so he almost immediately hands over the product without any questions. The blonde thanks, promising that he will eat everything. The square, it seems, is not so far away, so you just need to go not so far where they are going. Cedric turns to the girl who has another question. The young man asks what the handsome woman was talking about with Alonzo. When she was laughing, he said that there are better parks nearby and also advised him to go there with his family. The brunette nods his head while continuing to stare intently as if he was really interested in what was said. Somehow they move a little faster to make it in time. The servant almost immediately informed the Duke that the Indigentia family was now also involved. Calvados was not going to wait on the spot, so he immediately went to look for his daughter. The girl doesn't see anything, but hears someone ordering her to tie her legs and arms and then lock her inside. The kidnappers don't need new problems, so they are extreme. The beauty doesn't understand what happened or where she is because of the darkness. Nothing is visible at all. And because of this, it's also impossible to move a meter. I can't believe that she was kidnapped. In this life, the princess wanted to live peacefully and not worry, but nothing worked out. Daphne is trying to pull herself together because she knows that her father should come to her aid soon. A figure in a dark cloak follows forward through the forest. There are plenty of reasons for joy because everything is going more than perfectly, which means that all that remains is to wait for the arrival of that person, and very soon everything will return. Heavy steps are heard behind the man, immediately turns around, saying that he was waiting for someone who was even a little late. Standing in front of him is Cedric, who realized that he began to act at the most necessary moment. The person does not even have time to say anything else, because after a second the man is already turning around. With the help of magic, the wizard releases his magic into a circle located on the ground. The best solution would be not to move again so as not to cause problems. Cedric finally found the one who was lying on the ground, and this time even faster than the rest of the arrivals. It seems that the magician still has no idea who he contacted. They followed the magical trail that remained along the main path of magic supply. The Marquis did not hide his tracks very well, and thereby gave himself up in the very first days after the abduction. They demand the location of Princess Marineste from the guy Babylon turned to the guilds in the alley so that they would steal her for him, but they did not think and left what they got through to the customer. The anger accumulated inside spills out because, in fact, everything happened because of fools who could not do their job more or less normal. Reynold is famous because at one point he was even called the future great magician of this country. Even as an adult, He lived thinking that he was superior to the— While the young man humiliated others, thus trying to assert himself, Cedric appeared, who was a true genius from the very beginning. The young man told the Marquis that his magic leaves noticeable traces. Perhaps the best solution would be to invest more energy with which to strengthen the spells. The boy demonstrated the family's perfect magic, which was only shown to him once to demonstrate that he was not that smart. Not only by repeating the spell, but also by strengthening it, the hero proved to everyone once again that they were wrong. The guy, not realizing the complexity of the magic used, perceived it as breathing, and therefore used it without hesitation. Now Cedric is not the most powerful. After he was cursed, Reynold was able to use him as he had planned from the very beginning of his journey. Elia also arrived on the scene. Since this bastard appeared, complete chaos began, which is still happening. The girl cannot understand why the brunette is staring at her, piercing with a malicious gaze. She cannot believe that the young man was the one who was behind all the problems from the very beginning. The family has caught the enemy, but it's too early to relax because they still have to save Daphne as quickly as possible. They ordered to tell the location of the young lady Marinest in order to go there. The man could not expect that all three would show up in person almost at the first opportunity. But this does not change anything. The plan will still work, and this cannot be prevented. If indigentia rises higher, then they will find Lady Daphne in the hut. The boy finally attracts the attention of Lady Aaliyah. If he takes his time, he will be able to brainwash the girl so that she believes in everything. The door gradually opens. The beauty is also lying unconscious on the floor, blindfolded, so she does not understand whether the newcomer is her kidnapper or vice versa. They open it with difficulty, and this can be heard quite clearly. Perhaps someone has come to save the princess, so she can only tearfully hope that nothing bad will happen during this time. The hut has already been found, but it turned out to be impossible to open because it seems that a magical seal was placed on the lock for protection. The beauty is so angry that she tears the lock off with her bare hands. The entrance opens, but there is no one in the room at all. The trio stands and silently examines the emptiness in which boxes are scattered and a chair with a long extinct lantern is overturned. The girl's eyes unravel, and Gerald appears before her. She promises that she will definitely help the princess, so she won't have to be afraid anymore. The woman came specifically to protect the beauty. Returning back, Cedric announces to the Marquis that the hut was empty. He dared to lie, but the motives are not yet known. The question is asked again in order to give the last chance to tell everything. The reason why the girl is not in the forest is because she is kept completely safe. Raising her head, the person sharply shouts out the name of Elia, who involuntarily backs away. The man is no longer going to take orders from strangers, so he offers to surrender right now. That way neither of them will end up being fooled. Brainwashing the Duke, falsely accusing Gerald of abuse, and kidnapping Princess Marinest refers to the fairy who single-handedly committed a number of these crimes. Daphne doesn't understand what they're telling her because she can't believe that the beauty could do something terrible. Babylon goes on to say that the future Duchess ordered the Dark Guild to organize the kidnapping. The blonde was a little worried about whether to say something like that, but still decided to take drastic measures. As soon as the girl saw that it was the princess who could lift the curse from Cedric, she wanted revenge, so she began to threaten Babylon to kidnap Marinest. Of course, the family refused, saying that such a thing would never happen. While the teacher thought she should quickly report the fact, Elia immediately accused the lady of abusing Caleb. It was only because of the threats that the lady was able to be late in letting her know about the incident that also had a direct bearing on this. The Duchess is sincerely sorry. No one knows why, but Marinest and Babylon maintained a fairly good relationship over the years. Since there was no visible interaction, people suspected that they had done some special work. There were many rumors about unknown events, so Reynold was more than 100% confident of his victory. Daphne had known Gerald since childhood, and the girl had no doubts about everything that was told to her because trust trumped everything else. The princess herself taught the etiquette teacher the magic of the mirror shield, which she showed to Renoa. The imperial family believes the duchy, which is not surprising. The Marinest family believes in Babylon, so it is impossible for the Duke, who learned about this incident, to simply leave everything as it is and not apply any punishment. Cedric and Caleb will not be able to do anything about the verdict despite Aaliyah's status because it will be a direct order from the imperial family. There will be a complete end for the fairy, and thus they will all pay together for the actions that were committed in the past. The girl hopes that her friends do not believe the words spoken because they trust her. From what the Marquis says, it seems that they planned this kidnapping with the intention of blaming Aaliyah for everything, who without knowing it walked into the trap. It seems that the man means that most likely he treats the lady with great suspicion, which is already noticeable. She has not lived with them long enough to be trusted. Caleb asks the girl not to worry and clasps her hand as a sign of gratitude. She will always have him and his brother, and they will not allow anything bad to happen. The beauty cannot restrain her impulse, so she hugs the boy with all her might. She lets him go, so that it is easier to breathe, and also because in fact now she is most worried about Daphne. All thoughts were occupied with the fairy and finding out the identity to which she belonged. And because of this, the lady did not think at all about Daphne's condition. The Marquis's family would never have harmed the girl to force her to testify that Elia had manipulated her. If you think like that, when the family entered the forest, Reynold was surprised because he was waiting for someone else. If his behavior was not an act, then most likely Daphne is somewhere in the forest. The maiden cannot just sit and wait for this man to open his mouth in readiness. The heroine takes off promising that she will return soon. She can rise higher in order to understand where exactly the Duchess is, who is somewhere in this forest. Cedric is worried, so he convinces him that it's quite dangerous to go alone. His future wife still doesn't listen while asking him not to worry, since he'll be back pretty soon. Caleb also decided to go with a friend. Reynold has enough time, because that same person will soon be in place. You can rejoice in advance because everything is going exact. Gerald lends a helping hand to the Duchess, and together they can escape to a safe place where there will be no problems or looming threats. The two were waiting for their victory, although it was not too fast, but nothing came of it. The girl turns to the young Marquise of Babylon while lowering her voice by half a tone. They did not take into account that Daphne returned to the past. She asks how she can believe the words of the man standing in front of her while remaining in disbelief about what is happening, which she does not like. To make it clear that the jokes are over, the beauty repeats what she said again. Gerald is amazed that she has told something like this so unexpectedly. The blonde requires trust because she does absolutely everything for the one who is important to her. The baby has always believed, and therefore should not change her thoughts in advance without any warning. Indeed, before there was trust in the relationship because it seemed as if the lady was looking after the girl. But then that same conversation happened in the dungeon after imprisonment. Daphne shouldn't have thought that Gerald would like her, an incompetent girl who couldn't use magic. She thinks that to this day her ward believed her. The girl thinks that now the teacher is trying to frame an innocent person and thinks that they will believe her. Without words from now on, the beauty will allow herself to be deceived. The blonde is scared. Although she tries to control herself, she can't believe that this is exactly Daphne, who has been so lacking in self-confidence over the years since she started going out into the world. Everything is not going according to plan, since the teacher's words are not believed. While the woman is confused, the girl is about to sneak out, and then she runs to the door when a hand grabs her wrist. The girl's face is twisted with anger and pretense while she asks the princess where she is going. It has already been said that Babylon should be trusted, but if you don't listen, everything will only get worse. Offering to talk in a more secluded place, the lady is so unwilling to let go of her hand that she drags the child after her so that they can no longer be exposed to the light. The terrible misunderstanding that happened will very soon be cleared up, and everything that is done is only for the sake of the princess. Since no one wishes her harm, the people surrounding Marinist wish her love. The girl does not understand what to do, and again almost succumbs to panic. Perhaps the best solution would be to pretend that she believes her words, but no one knows for sure whether the place will be safe. My head displays moments of that cold, damp room in which the prisoner sat, almost always counting down the days until her execution. The reluctance to go into that horror exceeds, so she abruptly breaks free and runs away. The door swings open, and the lady hastily realizes that they are in the very depths of the forest. Firstly, they need to get out to a clean area, and secondly, tell everyone that there are hooded men outside who tell the girl that they came to save her. They don't quite understand why Gerald didn't show up with her ward. Once again, terrible moments arise before your eyes when the knights from the Imperial Guard ask to go through Marinist with them after the tragedy. The baby turns around and without thinking starts to run again. At the right moment, Babylon jumps out of the hut, who orders to grab the princess and talk to her. If you don't follow the order, then everything will come to an end. The beauty does not even stop to take a breath, thinking that she needs to run as far as possible. For some reason, against her will, something similar continues to happen to her. Initially, the plans and dreams included a life that would be ordinary, but again at some point the story turned onto a crooked path. The blue-eyed one freezes at the very cliff that she did not notice. The blonde asks the girl to come up to them, since the place where she is standing is extremely dangerous. It is not clear how it all happened, but a second later the beauty passes by, and the ground crumbles underfoot. A completely different life should have been normal, but fate has not changed the eyes close in anticipation of death. But then someone's warm hand grabs the palm. Finally, they met. The woman has beautiful eyes like pink jewels, as well as wonderful hair. Elia is grateful to God that she was not late, and the cliff does not seem too high to fall. The girl is in the body of a fairy, so she has much more strength, which is already an advantage that can easily be used to her advantage. Everything will be fine, but not only thanks to the fairy. Cedric grabs both of them right in the air, reproaching his future wife for her recklessness in relation to such feats. Now it is so important how the Duke ended up in this place on time. If the guy had not made it, the bride could have been seriously injured. The beauty interrupts the angry tirade with sincere thanks. Caleb remained in another place, and just as the duo are discussing how they can bring him here, Gerald watches the picture and is noticeably nervous, because something like this was definitely not in the plans. The gathered people in hoods are whispering about how quickly they can get out so as not to get into trouble even more. The people from the duchy will not leave them alone, and therefore it is certainly not worth the risk. No one has time to teleport because a second later, everyone is lying on the ground unconscious. Young Caleb is visible in the distance, who orders no one to run away. Otherwise, there will be even more. The beauty carefully examines Daphne, asks if she is absolutely fine, if something does not suit her. You can simply say to help each other at the very first. The blue-eyed girl is still in a state of passion. She asks why the Indigentia people arrived in the forest at such a moment. The couple came to save the lady. Since the main route of magical energy was under construction, they were able to follow the magic of Babylon, who left it in the square. Now, finally, everything is fine, and everyone is incredibly happy that the girl is okay. The beauty forgot to introduce herself, but her name is Elia, and she and the baby apologizes in advance for what she's going to say, but she really wants them to hold hands together. It won't be bad if they are together all the way to a safe place. The blue-eyed girl clung to the palm. The warmth that spreads throughout the body fills the lungs and makes her smile pleasantly from the feelings that have been accumulating inside all this time. The fear of running away alone has passed, because now the lady feels more than comfortable. The little girl must have been scared, having gone through all the hardships that came her way. The Marquis of Babylon has disappeared, so the lady turns to Cedric to figure out where he is. Gerald and her servants discuss what they are going to do in this whole situation. While the guy was looking for a girl, he dragged the man along with him. With magic, someone had already taken care of Reynolds' daughter, so there's no need to worry. Problems are solved as they come. Calvados comes out of the forest. It is not clear how he ended up in this area. The baby immediately runs to her father to hug him and tell him about everything that happened. The brunette hugs his daughter tightly and asks for forgiveness for arriving so late. He couldn't afford to stay late, but he did it anyway. It seems that the man, just like Indigentia, followed a magical trail one way or another. Thank God that he is finally there, because they can decide together what to do with Babylon. The girl is glad that she managed to persuade her groom to go to the capital, because now, thanks to their efforts, everything should return to normal. The look becomes angry within a second as the young man looks at the couple. He reveals water magic around himself and his daughter, asking how they dared to do this to Daphne. Cedric comes forward, asking Elia to hide behind him. Calvados must think that the Duke and Duchess are the culprits in this situation, and they should not allow this to happen. The brunette shuts down any attempts to justify himself on the part of the beauty she pretends, and tries to shift the blame onto others because of concern for Marinest. The young man is not able to think rationally like a loving father. he will not just leave it. The blue-eyed girl standing next to her dad grabs his cheeks with her hands, insistently asking him to stop. She understands why he is trying to attack the people from Indigenia. Aaliyah was not the one who kidnapped the young princess. The one who committed the crime was the Marquis of Babylon, and they tried to blame it on the Archduchy to get rid of them. People followed the magical trail from Reynolds' magic, and so they found the place where Daphne was kept. The man's family magic is the transfer of magic, so they could receive magic from the Marquis and use it. The baby fell from the cliff and the duo saved her life at the most opportune moment. The father must stop believing all the words of Babylon who is pretending. The heroine is also interested because information that is not in the original is important. For some reason, Calvados strongly A few minutes have passed and the understanding has increased a little. Now it becomes clear why the family is not believed by hundreds, even after the evidence. Caleb comes out of the forest. The boy speaks in a rough voice, asking if the Duke thought they wouldn't find out about the actions the man had done towards the duchy. The eyes glow with a bright fire which is full of anger, while the boy again repeats his question, which must be answered immediately so as not to piss him off. The hero understands that an emergency situation has occurred, but this does not mean anything regardless of the veracity. One must not lose sight of the fact that a member of the Indignencia was suspected. Caleb promises to submit an official complaint about what happened, and perhaps after this, Marinist will finally regret what he did thoughtlessly. After Cedric fell under the curse, the family continued to have superficial relationships with each other, but it was all friendliness that was limited. It was initially assumed that they would someday be revenged, and that is why the Duke completely believed in Reynolds' story, which, as it turned out, was completely fictitious. It is better to find out more details from the customers themselves and those who organized the assassination attempt. And theft, it cannot be that Babylon betrayed the Marinist family. The young man begins to quickly make excuses, constantly stuttering from fear. The magic of gravity will not be removed. A daring attempt to kidnap the princess and sow discord between families is an extremely serious crime, and is a clear. In order for the Marquises to get what they deserve, they will be handed over to the official aristocratic court, which will then decide for itself what is worth doing. It's all really over because the Emperor's knights have appeared. Gerald begins to cry, thereby attracting attention. She literally begs for mercy, but she is no longer sorry at all. Elia calls Miss, who was never able to have a normal conversation with her, and properly thank her for what happened earlier on the cliff. The beauty is not injured anywhere, so there is no point in worrying either. The blue-eyed one exhales with obvious relief because she was waiting for everything to finally end. In fact, the girl wanted to ask for one favor. She would like to call the girl sister from now on, if this, of course, is possible. Just like Aaliyah thought there is too much love in this little girl that she is using, if she feels comfortable being treated this way, then they can drop the formality. The family will immediately return back to the duchy with the help of Cedric's magic. The girl becomes a little sad because she wanted to stay together a little more. The one who became the savior is actually a person with a pure soul. Since she did this for the sake of someone unknown, she was in a more dangerous situation, but she smiled, because the princess was fine. I want to be closer to my sister, but so far this opportunity has not been provided. Before the couple leaves, the heroine calls Cedric to tell him something. The young lady smiles when she is again told that everyone is happy that she is safe, and in order to contribute to the relationship of the future husband and wife, the beauty is going to give one piece of advice. The blue-eyed woman leans towards the man's ear and tells him something. He blushes, asking if it's true such information will most likely be useful in the future. The girl is thanked for what she just said. The lady nods her head and is happy that she was able to help, and then runs away saying goodbye to the. On the way back, the beauty asks what she and Daphne were talking about because she actually became interested. The man simply refuses to say anything. Aaliyah should never again act alone, thinking that this would be the best strategy. She should stay close to her future husband, who would never leave her in difficult times. The heroine nods her head thoughtfully. If the lady acts alone, it will be considered a violation of the contract. Both are thinking about different things because Cedric believes that this is simply. Caleb is not there, so the family decides to wait for him a little. The young man watches Marinist, who passes by, and chuckles quietly. He does not at all like the momentum the game is gaining. Too much happened all day, and in order not to waste time, the girl decided to go and rest. Reynolds turned out to be the culprit and they managed to save Daphne. For the first time, the lady managed to meet Calvados, who had not even been mentioned before. More and more characters with connections are accumulating around her. Everything is fine with Cedric knocks on the door to the balcony and asks for forgiveness for coming so unexpectedly. He hopes that he did not interrupt the beauty's sleep. Everything is in perfect order because the girl was just getting ready to go to rest. She was wondering what kind of important business had appeared at such a late hour. The first thing they asked was how the bride was feeling. Things fell into place and the Duke actually only came because he was worried about the woman. We need to find a way to calm the guy down and get rid of him quickly. Smiling, the girl once again convinces that she feels great and that there is no problem in this because their mission had no impact, followed by a question about what the woman was doing before. I couldn't sleep, so I had to go out onto the balcony to briefly look at the stars, which calmed me down. Today's moon in the sky seems unusually wonderful. The guy was invited to join the party, but all he can look at is the bride. She has been looking at the sky from the moment she was in the right place, but still can't get enough of him. Since the situation is like this, it will be the best decision to conclude their marriage as soon as possible, so as not to delay. No one knows what may happen the next day. It seems that the Marquises of Babylon will disappear from the duchy if they are not there. Then, naturally, those who are followers will also disappear. If this happens, they will have less irritants from the outside. Reynolds will probably be sentenced to death, which will be impossible to avoid. This is a completely logical outcome for such a rotten person who dared to betray Marinist and Indignatia. The girl hoped that this would not bother her, and she even assured herself in her head that the gentleman deserved this. But now she felt uneasy after what she heard. The man notices something scarlet on his hand and sharply asks where this scratch came from. It seems that these are all the consequences of the forest. Nothing terrible happened, because it is not a strong scratch. The young man asks for forgiveness. Since the girl came to the duchy for his sake, dangerous things continue to happen, from which the man must protect the fairy stretches out her hands and places her index fingers at the corners of her mouth so that the guy smiles because it suits him much better than when he is sad. This is not something for which Cedric should apologize so again. You shouldn't even think about pressing problems. The results come only after the decision to act, which the heroine herself made. The girl, after all, was the first to say that they had to save Daphne, and the young man simply agreed with the proposal that came from his beloved. From this moment on, only good things will happen, so you shouldn't even think about something bad, or blame yourself. Saying the words with a smile on her face, the lady is trying to assure you of the veracity of what was said. As the hero thought Elia is a good person, the words spoken made something shake inside, so the girl almost immediately noticed that it was getting colder outside and offered to go inside. While the conversation lasted, it became quite late. The girl did a great job, so now she deserves to have a great night's sleep without bad dreams. The man has already left, but his words still can't get out of his head. The whole problem is that the young man has no idea what he's saying, because his future wife is not such a good person as he sees her. The beauty is thinking about what she is doing in an excited state. Now the most important thing is to get rid of the curse that is overtaking the innocent Duke. The maid standing in the room is shaking with fear for her life, because she is already accustomed to what the mistress is like when she is not in the mood. She nods her head in response to the question asked. The woman allows the maid to leave while she remains standing near the window and looking into the distance. The name Elia evokes strange sensations that she certainly does not like. A few days later, the verdict was returned on Lady Marinist's kidnappers. The death penalty for the entire family was the best solution, and it was also decided that Reynolds' head would be displayed for everyone. It's good that the family quickly arrived back to the duchy, since it would have been unacceptable for Caleb to see something like that. The horror that took place in the square is difficult to imagine. Now that Babylon's influence was fading, he and Cedric began preparations for the wedding, which was in full swing. They had too many things to do. Much has also changed in the duchy. The girl could not calmly pass by because every time someone called out to her so that they could talk calmly. The ladies complimented the girl every time, saying that they wanted to help with the preparations for the wedding. If the Duchess had a minute, they could easily drink tea together. The heroine had not learned to react to this all the time, so she ran away every time, pretending to be incredibly busy, even for a quick conversation with friends. The biggest change has happened in the behavior of the vassals. They were negative about the wedding with the Duke, but now they act as if they never objected and are doing everything possible to make the wedding as magnificent as possible. Since their leader Reynold had been executed, it was expected that their group would most likely just disintegrate. She didn't think they would try to stick together like this. Many of the views that ignored Caleb had disappeared. It seemed that the reason they had still treated the boy so coldly was because of the benefits they received from Babylon. The Virgin was incredibly angry at the sudden change in attitude, but it was still for the better, so she simply could not complain further. In any case, thanks to the support of many people, most of the preparations for the ceremony have finally been completed, and the couple can enjoy the quiet days that they are afforded. The words spoken that day still remained in her mind, although quite a lot of time had passed. Unfortunately, the beauty could not convince herself to throw them away. Every time the memories appeared, the maiden hit her cheeks with her palms, asking herself to stop thinking about something so terrible. She sits back and continues to think in a negative way. To occupy herself with at least something, the woman every time decided to cook something for Cedric, and every time this option seemed to be the best. Arriving at the office, the heroine also met Caleb, who immediately ran to the plate. She made them a snack so that the three of them could enjoy the time that they... Indigentia is really very grateful to the girl who cares so much, but at the same time, she does not have to force herself just because of the boy every time the conversation was the same. There was nothing wrong with cooking. Aaliyah was glad to see how the baby enjoyed what he cooked and glad to know that her future husband liked it too. From the look on the guy's face, it's immediately clear what's going on in his soul, and for this, it's not at all necessary to ask something specific. As soon as the young man tries cookies or some other food, he almost immediately develops a sweet expression on his face that makes him want to smile at the heroine. The man still cannot believe that Aaliyah, who only recently met him, noticed something that even the prince himself did not suspect. She clearly has hidden talents that are not immediately noticed. The madam from the salon arrived at the moment when they sat down to talk. The girl was going to go try on wedding dresses because they arrived a little earlier than she originally expected. It seems that Caleb should have started his business administration class a long time ago. He doesn't seem to want to go anywhere because he looks down somewhere on the floor as if he doesn't hear. When the hero is near, Elia, time flies too quickly to understand what is happening. They can spend more time together after the lesson is over. For this, they will have to have another snack before dinner. The boy promises that he will study hard and come back. He used to act so mature, but now he knows how to complain, so he looks like a child his age. It was time to go to try on clothes, hearing that the dress was ready. The beauty began to feel that the day of her marriage with Cedric was approaching, which made her feel excited. The fact that a lady would marry such a handsome man sounds simply unrealistic. The wedding ceremony itself is huge because this is how the future husband and wife chose her. The guy asks about Aaliyah's mood. He wants to know if the beauty feels depressed or if nothing bad is happening in her head. When the girl was at the dress fitting last time, Madame mentioned this in front of everyone else. Some brides sometimes feel depressed before the wedding. Now the girl understands what is being said, but does not remember that they had such a conversation. At least at that time, she would like to know why she should feel this way. Brides think of a once-in-a-lifetime wedding, but they have to spend it in a shabby wedding hall or marry an unloved groom. They may not like their own appearance, so they have no choice but to feel terrible. It seems that everything has fallen into place. The young man was worried that the beauty might not like him. He thought it would be better to ask in advance so that he could at least be in the know. The face turns a little scarlet. While the hero asks how exactly Aaliyah feels with such a face opposite her, she simply has no other option. Perhaps the young man is also worried about something, so he started this whole topic specifically to find out more. He can't choose an option like this because he's too handsome. Aaliyah has no idea what she's saying at all, but realizes her mistake too late when her husband is already thanking her for the compliment he liked. In fact, the brunette had an option for what he would like to ask. While the opportunity presents itself, the girl asks the guy to go to Madame first because she urgently needs to do something that she completely forgot about. The offer to go together did not seem too tempting, so the girl simply ran away. For some reason, it became difficult to look into that face. Lady Marineste said that Elia had recently revealed that she liked people with a beautiful smile. This option seemed the easiest to win her heart. After the word babies, the man couldn't stop thinking about it because every time more different thoughts appeared the day after that. At night, the girl said that a smile suits the guy. Although it is not clear why this is somehow disturbing, perhaps it means that the brunette has a beautiful smile that warms the lady every time he sees him. The realization of the thoughts that are spinning in his head overtakes the guy too quickly. He puts his face in his hands trying to drive Elia away. The assistant noticed that the gentleman has been strange lately. Madame noticed the arrival and surprisingly asked why he was alone. The future wife had some things to do, but very soon she would come up to try on dresses. The owner of the salon, Angela, nods her head and promises that they will definitely wait for the one who is late because there is no problem. Cedric seems to be worried about something, but he shouldn't be upset. The gentleman is so handsome that his wife will never be depressed in her life having such a... It seems that the door was not tightly closed, so the beauty heard everything and is now teasing that Angela has enough experience to take care of Indigencia's own wedding dress. It is difficult to find a person in an aristocratic society who will not buy anything. She heard many rumors that the guy was using the bride, and she herself wanted to get to the bottom of the truth. The brunette asks not to tell anyone while still blushing at what is happening. He is just a cute groom. Miss did a good job and is receiving praise from Olivia now that everything is decided. With the outfit, all that remains is to hold the wedding and continue to enjoy the future. The girl can't wait to finally see Cedric's beautiful tuxedo. For some reason, she is sure that it will fit almost perfectly. Angela forbade showing the dress to her future husband because it was not according to the rules. One can only hope that the man will also like everything at the ceremony. Next on the schedule, there is one important matter which the maid reads out. You will need to, as soon as the master finishes with his business, go and check. It's a contract marriage, but somehow the couple has to look like a real couple to everyone else. They have to share the same room together. It remains a mystery to the girl how they will be able to pull this off and why this happens. She was drinking tea, but suddenly coughed. A gentleman bursts into the room, worried about what happened here. The man even buttoned his clothes incorrectly because he rushed to help. Elia coughs again and turns scarlet even more than before. It looks like the girl just choked, and Olivia tries to help, holding out a glass of water. All that remains is to thank you for the experiences that turned out to be not the most important. The maid will look after the miss so the man can go back to his business. The guy must quickly finish the fitting so that the couple can go to view their future room. This information is now conveyed to the Duke himself. There is silence in the room, because the young man finally understands what happened. He himself blushes and stutteringly promises that he will finish quite quickly. Everything is too different from the rumors, and even Angela noticed this, who stands aside and chuckles lightly, watching how further events develop. The couple of future spouses are too cute. They did a good job with the selection of clothes, so all that remains is to say that everything turned out better than ever. Everything was more interesting since the two of them were doing something like this. Angela apologizes for her statements, because it's not her fault she heard that Mr. Cedric is marrying the person he likes. That's why she's so excited. The girl is very interested in learning one important detail of the story. She would not mind finding out what made the Duchess fall in love with her groom. Trying not to stutter, the beauty says something about kindness and a beautiful view, but then shuts up, realizing that this was clearly an unnecessary statement. The fact that Aaliyah began to worry about the others and tried to do everything to understand them became the reason for Indigencia to reach out to the others without hesitation. When a man managed to see such scenes, he began to slowly fall more and more in love. The guy is really very much in love, you can tell at first sight. The girl would like to yell at her companion, but she can't. He is trying too hard to play while embarrassing everyone around him, and especially his future wife. Lately, the hero has been different. It is impossible to say what exactly has changed in him, but he behaves differently from what he did before. The brunette came into the office after everyone had finished. Polinoa did not forget to ask how he liked the newlyweds' room, and received the usual answer that everything was fine. Edwin would also like to talk about the task that he was assigned last time, and which he could not miss. The investigation about Miss Elia was important. This time in the duchy again, no information was received from the villages located near the hut. Now the possibility of expanding the investigation area is being considered, but so far there is still no information. If the lady were an ordinary person, then it would have been possible to figure out who she was long ago. But the fact is that there is still not a single grain of... Edwin stopped short and he immediately asks for forgiveness because he admits that he should not have said something as inappropriate as this. The investigation will continue. The girl is once again bored. Everyone around, as luck would have it, is busy with something but not her. The only acceptable activity is cooking dinner for Cedric. Caleb's voice is heard from the room in which the door is slightly open, as if specifically so that the person could hear everything. It seems that he is talking to someone. The kid holds a notebook in his hands, which he constantly carries with him while writing something down there. Not a day goes by without making, as he thought his brother cannot be trusted, so he is going to conduct an investigation about Aaliyah on his own, so that there are no unnecessary questions. Horrible pictures pop up in my head. I don't want to believe that the boy found out that his friend is a fairy, and is now going to further find out who she is. After the child left, the girl snuck into his room. She mentally asks for forgiveness, since she herself would not want to look at the things left by others. Now there is an emergency situation, so there is no other choice. Squeezing her eyes shut as best she can, the lady opens the pages. I would like to be wrong at least once and for everything to be just as good as usual. In crooked letters on the sheets, it is written that the guy managed to make sure that Elia was not on a diet. But it's too early to rejoice because the wedding will take place soon. So there is a chance that she will want to go on a diet again. It won't take long for something bad to happen, and the hero will come to the rescue so that the friend does not lose an ounce of weight. He plans for the girl to eat dessert, although it is not clear what exactly she might like. After all, the girl is getting married, so she decided to control her body weight, but the couple's brothers do not allow this and bring various tasty things. On other pages, more is written about how the two spend their time. Moreover, the hero is too cute, which makes you want to smile. Inside the diary, it talks about how they cooked together, and also about when the three of them looked at the stars. It all brings back memories. Lately, the young man has fun every day, which makes him happy. His brother began to look brighter, and the whole duchy seems more alive with the arrival of a new girlfriend. There was always only the best. The boy writes about how he hopes that if the girl breaks the curse and gets divorced, she will not leave the estate, or at least the territory of the country. And just like that, the days when each of them was visited by many thoughts passed. The wedding day arrived, which everyone was expecting together. Daphne hurries forward, saying that they need to get there quickly so that the wedding does not begin without their presence. It's incredibly beautiful outside. I would like to know how beautiful the hall is if there is already an overabundance of decorations outside that were taken out in honor of the holiday. Marinus was originally going to just send gifts and not attend the event, but things didn't go as planned. After Babylon was presented before the court, the family of Duke Indigentia announced the incident to everyone due to the written things of the past that everyone had forgotten about began to resurface again. The fact that Daphne Marinus caused the curse to pass on Cedric was very good food for those who like to gossip. Since this issue is directly related to the imperial family, no one can talk about it casually. I couldn't believe that Indigentia helped the Duke. Despite what happened, he became a kind of hero in the eyes of those around him. In fact, it is said that after the incident that happened in the past, the man did not receive proper compensation from Calvados. Everyone was talking about the two main families. To keep abreast of current information, gossips subscribed to the newspaper. Demand grew so much that the newspaper's publishing house opened in the capital. Half of the amount that Marinus gave went to the wedding hall. Although he was guilty, he did not plan to take part in the wedding, so he refused. Daphne received an invitation and said that she really wanted to participate, so she didn't have to do anything since there was no choice left. The girl never spoke about the meeting that happened after that very moment in the forest. Caleb addressed the princess, saying that everything ended in her favor, even if what was said from the Duke was important. But this was simply unacceptable. The girl should not ask why they are doing this to her. Because of her, the boy's older brother was overtaken by a curse from which he suffers to this day. Of course, her father, as well as the imperial family, were simply happy that the crown prince was completely safe. Aaliyah suddenly appeared, and only by marrying her will a man be able to go to the Temple of Knowledge, thanks to which the likelihood of lifting the curse increases. The girl dared to act as if they were close to a beauty, even if in fact this was completely not the case. The blue-eyed one opposed. The little sister herself decided to save the baby, so there were no other options. The situation was urgent, so the beauty rushed to the rescue. The princess must come to her senses. She literally put a curse on the man her friend loves, so it seems that everything is not so simple. Nevertheless, the baby was invited because otherwise various rumors could spread, which could then not be washed away. There was no point in harboring. Daphne shakes her head, trying to throw away the image of the boy. She cannot believe what was said, because it was not Elia herself. The beauty probably should have apologized as soon as it all happened, but things were settled so quickly that she didn't have a chance. In any case, one day she will be able to apologize. The girl would not want her only friend to hate her. The bride is indignant about what they put on her. The dress is too heavy, even though Olivia removed all the pearls that were on it. Aaliyah will cope with all the difficulties. For the sake of a joke, the beauty smiles awkwardly, suggesting that in this case she will not be able to get married. Polinoa promised that nothing would happen, because just in case he immediately turned to the Archduke for help. The boy enters the room almost immediately and plaintively asks if his friend really can't marry her brother. She herself, without realizing it, blurted out something. For the sake of the future of the dukedom, the couple is going to apply the magic of gravity to Aaliyah's jewelry and accessories in order to make her feel a little. At that moment, I wanted to shut up the assistant, but Olivia agreed with the good idea, just like Angela, who said to do it early. In order for everything to go perfectly, the blonde was going to get ready to use his magic, which would become useful. Everything should definitely be in order with this wedding, because it can't even be any other way everyone will survive, but the ceremony will begin very soon. The Duke has managed to prepare almost perfectly. He cannot wait until they finally meet in the wedding hall with many guests.